Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. My name is Neale Donald Walsh. The following audio program contains selections from Conversations with God, an Uncommon Dialogue, Book 2, concerning creating your future in the eternal moment. You are here by appointment, true, but still, you could have failed to show up. You could have decided not to. You chose instead to be here at the appointed hour, at the appointed place, for this program to come into your hands. So thank you. What you have here is that for which you have been looking, that for which you have been yearning for a very long time. What you have here is your latest, and for some of you, perhaps your first, very real contact with God. This is a contact, and it is very real. God is going to have an actual conversation with you now, through me. I wouldn't have said this a few years ago. I'm saying it now because I've already had such a dialogue, and I therefore know that such a dialogue is possible. Not only is it possible, it is happening all the time, just as this is happening right here, right now. My first experience of talking to God on your behalf occurred in 1992 and 93. I had written an angry letter to God, asking why my life had become such a monument to struggle and failure. My letter to God demanded to know why and what it took to make life work. To my astonishment, that letter was answered. How it was answered and what those answers were became a book, published in May 1995 under the title Conversations with God, Book 1. The process by which this information arrived was exquisitely simple. On a blank sheet of paper, I would merely write a question, any question, usually the first question that came to my head. And no sooner was the question written than the answer would form in my head, as if someone were whispering in my ear. I was taking dictation. With the exception of the few words I'm speaking now, all the material in this book was placed on paper between spring of 1993 and a little over a year later. I'd like to present it to you now, just as it came from me and was given to me. Well, it's Easter Sunday, 1993, and as instructed, I'm here. I am here, pencil in hand, writing pad before me, ready to begin. I suppose I should tell you, God asked me to be here. We had a date. On Easter Sunday, 1992, 1 year ago today, God began a dialogue with me. I know, that sounds ridiculous, but it's what happened. Not long ago, that dialogue ended. I was given instructions to take a rest, but told also that I had a date to return to this conversation this day. You have a date, too. You're keeping it right now. I'm clear that these words are being spoken not only to me, but to you through me. Apparently, you've been looking for God and for word from God for a very long time. So have I. Today, we shall find God together. That's always the best way to find God, together. We shall never find God apart. I mean that two ways. I mean, we'll never find God so long as we are apart. For the first step in finding that we are not apart from God is finding that we are not apart from each other. And until we know and realize that all of us are one, we cannot know and realize that we and God are one. God is not apart from us, ever. And we only think we are apart from God. It's a common error. We also think we're apart from each other. And so the fastest way to find God, I've discovered, is to find each other, to stop hiding out from each other, and of course to stop hiding out from ourselves. The fastest way to stop hiding out is to tell the truth, to everyone, all the time. Start telling the truth now and never stop. Begin by telling the truth to yourself about yourself. Then tell the truth to yourself about another. Then tell the truth about yourself to another. Then tell the truth about another to that other, and finally tell the truth to everyone about everything. This program is about truth, not my truth, God's truth. Our initial dialogue, God's and mine, was concluded just a month ago. I assume this one will go just like the first. That is, I ask questions and God answers. I guess I'll stop and ask God right now. God, is this how it's going to go?
Yes.
I thought so.
Except that I'll bring some subjects up myself without you asking.
Why are you adding that twist here?
Because I asked you here. The first contact you started by yourself. This time you have no agenda, except to do my will.
Yes, that's correct.
That, Neale, is a very good place to be. I hope you and others will go to that place often.
But I thought your will was my will. How could I not do your will if it's the same as mine?
That is an intricate question, and not a bad place to start. Not a bad place at all for us to begin this dialogue. Let's go back a few paces. I've never said that my will was your will.
Oh, yes, you have. You said to me very clearly, your will is my will.
Indeed. But that's not the same thing.
It's not. Could have fooled me.
When I say your will is my will, that is not the same thing as saying my will is your will. If you did my will all the time, there would be nothing more for you to do to achieve enlightenment. The process would be over. You would be already there. One day of doing nothing but my will would bring you enlightenment. If you had been doing my will all the years you've been alive, you'd hardly need to be involved in this project right now. So it's clear you have not been doing my will. In fact, most of the time you don't even know my will.
I don't.
No, you don't.
Well, then why don't you tell me what it is?
I do. You just don't listen. And when you do listen, you don't really hear. And when you do hear, you don't believe what you're hearing. And when you do believe what you're hearing, you don't follow instructions anyway. So to say that my will is your will is demonstrably inaccurate. On the other hand, your will is my will. First, because I know it. Second, because I accept it. Third, because I praise it. Fourth, because I love it. Fifth, because I own it and call it my own. This means you have free will to do as you wish, and that I make your will mine through unconditional love. Now, for my will to be yours, you would have to do the same. First, you would have to know it. Second, you would have to accept it. Third, you would have to praise it. Fourth, you would have to love it. Finally, you would have to call it your own. In the whole history of your race, only a few of you have ever done this consistently. A handful of others have done it nearly always. Many have done it a great deal. A whole slew of people have done it from time to time. And virtually everyone has done it on rare occasion, although some have never done it at all.
Which category am I in?
Doesn't matter. Which category do you want to be in from now on? Isn't that the pertinent question?
Yes.
And your answer?
Well, I'd like to be in the first category. I'd like to know and do your will all the time.
That's laudable, commendable, and probably impossible.
Why?
Because you have far too much growing to do before you can claim that. Yet I tell you this, you could claim that. You could move to godhood this instant if you chose to. Your growth need not take so much time.
Well, then why has it taken it so much time?
Indeed. Why has it? What are you waiting for? Surely you don't believe it is I holding you back?
No, I'm clear that I'm holding myself back.
Good. Clarity is the first step to mastery.
Well, I'd like to get to mastery. How do I get there? How do I do that?
Keep listening. That's exactly where I'm taking you.
I'm not sure where to begin.
Let's take time.
How much time do we need to take? It's already taken me 5 months to get here. I know that people listen to this and think it's all put down in one even, uninterrupted flow. They don't realize that 20 weeks separated the 32nd and 33rd paragraph of this program. They don't understand that sometimes the moments of inspiration are half a year apart. How much time do we have to take?
That's not what I meant. I mean, let's take time.
As our first subject, as a place to begin.
Oh, well, okay. But while we're on the subject, why are you so long between visits?
My dear and wonderful son, I am not long between visits. I am never not with you. You are simply not always aware.
Why? Why am I not aware of you if you're always here?
Because your life gets caught up in other things. Let's face it, you've had a pretty busy 5 months.
Oh, yes, I have. A lot's been going on.
And you've made these things more important than me.
It doesn't feel like my truth.
I invite you to look at your actions. You've been deeply involved in your physical life. You've paid very little attention to your soul.
Well, it's been a challenging period.
Yes, all the more reason to have included your soul in the process. These past months would have gone much more smoothly with my help. So may I suggest that you don't lose contact?
I try to stay close, but I seem to get lost, caught up, as you put it, in my own drama. And then somehow I don't find time for you. I don't meditate. I don't pray. I certainly don't write.
I know. It's an irony of life that when you need our connection the most, you step away from it.
How can I stop doing that?
Stop doing that.
That's just what I said, but how?
You stop doing that by stopping doing that.
Well, it's not that simple.
It is that simple.
I wish it were.
Then it really will be, because what you wish is my command. Remember, my cherished one, your desires are my desires. Your will is my will.
All right, okay. Then I wish for this conversation to be finished by March. It's October now, and I wish for no more 5-month gaps in the material coming.
So will it be.
Good.
Unless it's not.
Oh, man, do we have to play these games?
No, but so far that's how you've decided to live your life. You keep changing your mind. Remember, life is an ongoing process of creation. You are creating your reality every minute. The decision you make today is often not the choice you make tomorrow. Yet here is the secret of all masters. Keep choosing the same thing.
Over and over again? Once is not enough?
Over and over until your will is made manifest in your reality. For some, that could take years. For some, months. For others, weeks. For those approaching mastery, days, hours, or even minutes. For masters, creation is instantaneous. You can tell you are on your way to mastery when you see the gap closing between willing and experiencing.
You said the decision you make today is often not the choice you make tomorrow. So what? Are you saying we should never indulge in a change of mind?
Change your mind all you want. Yet remember that with each change of mind comes a change in the direction of the whole universe. When you make up your mind about something, you set the universe into motion. Forces beyond your ability to comprehend, far more subtle and complex than you can imagine, are engaged in a process, the intricate dynamics of which you are only just now beginning to understand. These forces and this process are all part of the extraordinary web of interactive energies which comprise the entirety of existence, which you call life itself. They are, in essence, me.
So when I change my mind, I'm making it difficult for you, is that it?
Nothing is difficult for me, but you might be making things very difficult for yourself. Therefore, be of one mind and of single purpose about a thing. And don't take your mind off it until you have produced it in reality. Keep focused. Stay centered. This is what is meant by being single-minded. If you choose something, choose it with all your might, with all your heart. Don't be faint-hearted. Keep going. Keep moving toward it. Be determined.
Don't take no for an answer.
Exactly.
But what if no is the right answer? But what if what we want is not for us, not for our own good, not in our best interests? Then you won't give it to us, right?
Wrong. I will give you whatever you call forth, whether it's good for you or bad for you. Have you looked at your life lately?
But I've been taught that we can't always have what we desire. I mean, that God won't give it to us if it's not for our highest good.
That's something people tell you when they want you not to be disappointed with a particular outcome. First of all, let's move back to clarity about our relationship. I don't give you anything. You call it forth. Secondly, I don't make a judgment about what you call forth. I don't call a thing good or bad. You, too, would do well not to do so. You are a creative being, made in the image and likeness of God. You may have whatever you choose, but you may not have anything you want.
In fact, you'll never get anything you want if you want it badly enough.
I know. You've said that the act of wanting a thing pushes it away from us.
Yes. And do you remember why?
Because thoughts are creative, and the thought of wanting a thing is a statement to the universe, a declaration of a truth, which the universe then produces in my reality.
Precisely. Exactly. You have learned. You do understand. That's great. Yes, that's how it works. The moment you say, I want something, the universe says, indeed you do, and gives you that precise experience, the experience of wanting it. Whatever you put after the word I becomes your creative command. The genie in the bottle, which I am, exists but to obey. I produce what you call forth. You call forth precisely what you think, feel, and say. It's as simple as that.
So tell me again, why does it take so much time for me to create the reality I choose?
For a number of reasons. Because you do not believe you can have what you choose. Because you do not know what to choose. Because you keep trying to figure out what's best for you. Because you want guarantees ahead of time that all your choices will be good. And because you keep changing your mind.
Let me see if I understand. I shouldn't try to figure out what's best for me?
Best is a relative term depending on 100 variables. That makes choices very difficult. There should be only one consideration when making any decision. Is this a statement of who I am? Is this an announcement of who I choose to be? All of life should be such an announcement. In fact, all of life is. You can allow that announcement to be made by chance or by choice. A life lived by choice is a life of conscious action. A life lived by chance is a life of unconscious reaction. Reaction is just that, an action you have taken before. When you react, what you do is assess the incoming data, search your memory bank for the same or nearly the same experience, and act the way you did before. This is all the work of the mind, not of your soul. Your soul would have you search its memory to see how you might create a truly genuine experience of you in the now moment. This is the experience of soul-searching of which you have so often heard, but you have to be literally out of your mind to do it. When you spend your time trying to figure out what's best for you, you are doing just that, spending your time. Better to save your time than to spend it wastefully. It is a great time saver to be out of your mind. Decisions are reached quickly, choices are activated rapidly, because your soul creates out of present experience only, without review, analysis, and criticism of past encounters. Remember this: the soul creates, the mind reacts. The soul knows in its wisdom that the experience you are having in this moment is an experience sent to you by God before you had any conscious awareness of it. This is what is meant by a pre-sent experience. It's already on the way to you even as you are seeking it. For even before you ask, I shall have answered you. Every now moment is a glorious gift from God. That's why it is called the present. The soul intuitively seeks the perfect circumstance and situation now needed to heal wrong thought and bring you the rightful experience of who you really are. It is the soul's desire to bring you back to God, to bring you home to me. It is the soul's intention to know itself experientially, and thus to know me. For the soul understands that you and I are one, even as the mind denies this truth and the body acts out this denial. Therefore, in moments of great decision, be out of your mind and do some soul-searching instead. The soul understands what the mind cannot conceive. If you spend your time trying to figure out what's best for you, your choices will be cautious, your decisions will take forever, and your journey will be launched on a sea of expectations. If you are not careful, you will drown in your expectations.
Whew, that's quite an answer. But how do I listen to my soul? How do I know what I'm hearing?
The soul speaks to you in feelings. Listen to your feelings. Follow your feelings. Honor your feelings.
Why does it seem to me that honoring my feelings is precisely what has caused me to get into trouble in the first place?
Because you have labeled growth trouble and standing still safe. I tell you this, your feelings will never get you into trouble because your feelings are your truth. If you want to live a life where you never follow your feelings, but where every feeling is filtered through the machinery of your mind, go right ahead. Make your decisions based on your mind's analysis of the situation. But don't look for joy in such machinations, nor for celebration of who you truly are. Remember this, true celebration is mindless. If you listen to your soul, you will know what is best for you, because what is best for you is what is true for you. When you act only out of what is true for you, you speed your way down the path. When you create an experience based on your now truth, rather than react to an experience based on a past truth, you produce a new you. Why does it take so much time to create the reality you choose? This is why. Because you have not been living your truth. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Yet once you come to know your truth, don't keep changing your mind about it. This is your mind trying to figure out what's best. Stop it. Get out of your mind. Get back to your senses. That is what is meant by getting back to your senses. It is a returning to how you feel, not how you think. Your thoughts are just that, thoughts, mental constructions, made-up creations of your mind. But your feelings, now they are real. Feelings are the language of the soul, and your soul is your truth. There. Now does that tie it all together for you?
Does this mean we are to express any feelings, no matter how negative or destructive?
Feelings are neither negative nor destructive. They are simply truths. How you express your truth is what matters. When you express your truth with love, negative and damaging results rarely occur. And when they do, it is usually because someone else has chosen to experience your truth in a negative or damaging way. In such a case, there's probably nothing you can do to avoid the outcome. Certainly, failing to express your truth would hardly be appropriate. Yet people do this all the time. So afraid are they to cause or to face possible unpleasantness that they hide their truth altogether. Remember this. It is not nearly so important how well a message is received as how well it is sent. You cannot take responsibility for how well another accepts your truth. You can only ensure how well it is communicated. And by how well, I don't mean merely how clearly. I mean how lovingly, how compassionately, how sensitively, how courageously, and how completely. This leaves no room for half-truths, the brutal truth, or even the plain truth. It does mean the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. It's the so help you God part that brings in the godly qualities of love and compassion. I will help you communicate in this way always if you will ask me. So yes, express what you call your most negative feelings, but not destructively. Failure to express or push out negative feelings does not make them go away. It keeps them in. Negativity kept in harms the body and burdens the soul.
But if another person hears every negative thought you have about that person, it would have to affect the relationship, no matter how lovingly those thoughts were delivered.
I said to express, push out, get rid of your negative feelings. I did not say how or to whom. All negativity need not be shared with the person about whom it is felt. It is only necessary to communicate these feelings to the other when failure to do so would compromise your integrity or cause another to believe in untruth. Negativity is never a sign of ultimate truth, even if it seems like your truth at the moment. It may arise out of an unhealed part of you. In fact, always it does. That is why it is so important to get these negativities out.
To release them. Only by letting go of them, putting them out there, placing them in front of you, can you see them clearly enough to know whether you really believe them. You have all said things, ugly things, only to discover that, once having been said, they no longer feel true. You have all expressed feelings from fear to anger to rage, only to discover that, once having been expressed, they no longer reveal how you really feel. In this way, feelings can be tricky. Feelings are the language of the soul, but you must make sure you are listening to your true feelings and not some counterfeit model constructed in your mind.
Oh, man. So now I can't even trust my feelings. Great. I thought that was the way to the truth. I thought that was what you were teaching me.
It is. I am. But listen, because it is more complex than you now understand. Some feelings are true feelings. That is, feelings born in the soul. And some feelings are counterfeit feelings. These are constructed in your mind. In other words, they are not feelings at all. They are thoughts. Thoughts masquerading as feelings. These thoughts are based on your previous experience and on the observed experience of others. You see someone grimace when having a tooth pulled. You grimace when having your tooth pulled. It may not even hurt, but you grimace anyway. Your reaction has nothing to do with reality, only how you perceive reality, based on the experience of others or on something that's happened to you in the past. The greatest challenge as human beings is to be here now, to stop making things up. Stop creating thoughts about a pre-sent moment, a moment you sent yourself before you had a thought about it. Be in the moment. Remember, you sent yourself this moment as a gift. The moment contained the seed of a tremendous truth. It is a truth you wish to remember. Yet when the moment arrived, you immediately began constructing thoughts about it. Instead of being in the moment, you stood outside the moment and judged it. Then you reacted. That is, you acted as you did once before. Now listen to these two words. Reactive, creative. Notice they are the same word, only the C has been moved. When you see things correctly, you become creative rather than reactive.
That's very clever.
Well, God is like that. But you see, the point I'm trying to make is that when you come to each moment cleanly, without a previous thought about it, you can create who you are, rather than reenact who you once were. Life is a process of creation, and you keep living it as if it were a process of reenactment.
But how can any rational human being ignore one's previous experience in the moment something occurs? I mean, isn't it normal to call up everything you know on the subject and respond from that?
It may be normal, but it is not natural. Normal means something usually done. Natural is how you are when you're not trying to be normal. Natural and normal are not the same thing. In any given moment, you can do what you normally do, or you can do what comes naturally. I tell you this, nothing is more natural than love. If you act lovingly, you will be acting naturally. If you react fearfully, resentfully, angrily, you may be acting normally, but you will never be acting naturally.
How can I act with love when all of my previous experience is screaming at me that a particular moment is likely to be painful?
Ignore your previous experience and go into the moment. Be here now. See what there is to work with right now in creating yourself anew. Remember, this is what you are doing here. You have come to this world in this way, at this time, in this place, to know who you are and to create who you wish to be. This is the purpose of all of life. Life is an ongoing, never-ending process of recreation. You keep recreating yourselves in the image of your next highest idea about yourselves.
But isn't that rather like the man who jumped off the highest building, sure that he could fly? He ignored his previous experience and the observed experience of others and jumped off the building, all the while declaring, "I am God." That doesn't seem very smart.
And I tell you this, men have achieved results much greater than flying. Men have healed sickness. Men have raised the dead.
One man has.
You think only one man has been granted such powers over the physical universe?
Only one man has demonstrated them.
Not so. Who parted the Red Sea?
God?
Indeed. But who called upon God to do that?
Moses.
Exactly. And who called upon me to heal the sick and raise the dead?
Jesus.
Yes. And now do you think what Moses and Jesus did you cannot do?
But they didn't do it. They asked you to. That's a different thing.
Okay, we'll go with your construction for now. And do you think that you cannot ask me these same miraculous things?
I suppose I could.
And would I grant them?
I don't know.
Well, that's the difference between you and Moses. That's what separates you from Jesus.
Many people believe if they ask in Jesus' name, you will grant their request.
Yes, many people do believe that. They believe they have no power, but they have seen, or believe others who have seen, the power of Jesus. So they ask in his name, even though he said, "Why are you so amazed? These things and more shall you also do." Yet the people could not believe it. Many do not to this day. You all imagine you are unworthy. So you ask in the name of Jesus, or the Blessed Virgin Mary, or the patron saint of this or that, or the sun god, or the spirit of the east. You'll use anybody's name, anybody's, but your own. Yet I tell you this, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be open unto you.
Jump off the building and you shall fly.
There have been people who have levitated. Do you believe this?
Well, I've heard of it, I guess.
And people who have walked through walls and even left their bodies.
Yes, but I've never seen anybody walk through walls, and I don't suggest anyone try it. Nor do I think we should jump off buildings. That's probably not good for your health.
That man fell to his death not because he could not have flown if he were coming from the right state of being, but because he could never have demonstrated godliness by trying to show himself as separate from you.
Please explain.
The man on the building lived in a world of self-delusion in which he imagined himself to be other than the rest of you. By declaring, "I am God," he began his demonstration with a lie. He hoped to make himself separate, larger, more powerful. It was an act of the ego. Ego, that which is separate, individual, can never duplicate or demonstrate that which is one. By seeking to demonstrate that he was God, the man on the building demonstrated only his separateness, not his unity with all things. Thus he sought to demonstrate godliness by demonstrating ungodliness and failed. Jesus, on the other hand, demonstrated godliness by demonstrating unity, and seeing unity and wholeness wherever and upon whomever he looked. In this his consciousness and my consciousness were one, and in such a state whatever he called forth was made manifest in his divine reality in that holy moment.
I see, so all it takes is Christ consciousness to perform miracles. Well, that should make things simple.
Actually, it does. More simple than you think. And many have achieved such consciousness. Many have been Christed, not just Jesus of Nazareth. You can be Christed too.
How?
By seeking to be. By choosing to be. But it is a choice you must make every day, every minute. It must become the very purpose of your life. It is the purpose of your life. You simply do not know it. And even if you know it, even if you remember the exquisite reason for your very existence, you do not seem to know how to get there from where you are.
Yes, that is the case. So how can I get from where I am to where I want to be?
I tell you this, again, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you.
I've been seeking and knocking for 35 years. You'll pardon me if I'm a little bored with that line.
If not to say disillusioned, yes. But really, while I have to give you good grades for trying, an A for effort, so to speak, I can't say I can't agree with you that you've been seeking and knocking for 35 years. Let's agree that you've been seeking and knocking on and off for 35 years, mostly off. In the past, when you were very young, you came to me only when you were in trouble, when you needed something. As you grew older and matured, you realized that was probably not a right relationship with God, and sought to create something more meaningful. Even then, I was hardly more than a sometimes thing. Still later, as you came to understand that union with God can be achieved only through communion with God, you undertook the practices and behaviors that could achieve communion, yet even these you engaged sporadically, inconsistently. You meditated, you held ritual, you called me forth in prayer and chant, and you evoked the spirit of me in you, but only when it suited you, only when you felt inspired to. And glorious as your experience of me was, even on these occasions, still you've spent 95% of your life caught up in the illusion of separateness, and only flickering moments here and there in the realization of ultimate reality. You still think that your life is about car repairs and telephone bills and what you want out of relationships, that it's about the dramas you've created rather than the creator of those dramas. You have yet to learn why you keep creating your dramas. You're too busy playing them out. You say you understand the meaning of life, but you do not live your understandings. You say you know the way toward communion with God, but you do not take that way. You claim you're on the path, but you do not walk it. Then you come to me and say you've been seeking and knocking for 35 years. I hate to be the one to disillusion you, but it's time you stopped being disillusioned in me and started seeing you as you really are. Now, I tell you this. You want to be Christed? Act like Christ. Every minute of every day. It's not that you don't know how. He has shown you the way. Be like Christ in every circumstance. It's not that you can't. He has left you instructions. You are not without help in this, should you seek it. I'm giving you guidance every minute of every day. I am the still small voice within which knows which way to turn, which path to take, which answer to give, which action to implement, which word to say, which reality to create if you truly seek communion and unity with me. Just listen to me.
I guess I just don't know how to do that.
Ah, nonsense. You're doing it right now. Simply do it all the time.
But I can't walk around with a yellow legal pad every minute of the day. I can't stop everything and start writing notes to you, hoping you'll be there with one of your brilliant answers.
Thank you. They are brilliant. And here's another one. Yes, you can. I mean, if someone told you that you could have a direct connection with God, a direct link, a direct line, and all you had to do was make sure you had paper and pen handy at all times, would you do it?
Well, yes, of course.
Yet you just said you wouldn't, or can't. So what's the matter with you? What are you saying? What is your truth? Now, the good news is that you don't even need a pad and pen. I am with you always. I don't live in the pen. I live in you.
That is true, isn't it? I mean, I can really believe that, can't I?
Of course you can believe it. It's what I've been asking you to believe from the beginning. It's what every master, including Jesus, has said to you. It is the central teaching. It is the ultimate truth. I am with you always, even unto the end of time. Do you believe this?
Yes. Yes, now I do. More than ever, I mean.
Good. Then use me. If it works for you to take out a pad and a pen, and I must say that seems to work pretty well for you, then take out a pad and a pen. More often, every day, every hour if you have to. Get close to me. Get close to me. Do what you can. Do what you have to. Do what it takes. Say a rosary. Kiss a stone. Bow to the east. Chant a chant. Swing a pendulum. Test a muscle. Or write a book. Do what it takes. Each of you has your own construction. Each of you has understood me, created me in your own way. To some of you, I am a man. To some of you, I am a woman. To some, I am both. To some, I am neither. To some of you, I am pure energy. To some, the ultimate feeling, which you call love. And some of you have no idea what I am. You simply know that I am. And so it is. I am. I am the wind which rustles your hair. I am the sun which warms your body. I am the rain which dances on your face. I am the smell of flowers in the air. And I am the flowers which send their fragrance upward. I am the air which carries the fragrance. I am the beginning of your first thought. I am the end of your last. I am the idea which sparked your most brilliant moment. I am the glory of its fulfillment. I am the feeling which fueled the most loving thing you ever did. I am the part of you which yearns for that feeling again and again. Whatever works for you, whatever makes it happen, whatever ritual, ceremony, demonstration, meditation, thought, song, word, or action it takes for you to reconnect, do this. Do this in remembrance of me.
So, going back and summarizing what you're telling me, I seem to come up with these main points. Life is an ongoing process of creation. A secret of all masters is to stop changing one's mind, keep choosing the same thing. Don't take no for an answer. We call forth what we think, feel, and say. Life is a process of creation or reaction. The soul creates, the mind reacts. The soul understands what the mind cannot conceive. Stop trying to figure out what is best for you, how you can win the most, lose the least, get what you want, and start going with what feels like who you are. Your feelings are your truth. What is best for you is what is true for you. Thoughts are not feelings. Rather, they are ideas of how you should feel. When thoughts and feelings get confused, truth becomes clouded, lost. To get back to your feelings, be out of your mind and get back to your senses. Once you know your truth, live it. Negative feelings are not true feelings at all. Rather, they are your thoughts about something, based always on the previous experience of yourself and others. Previous experience is no indicator of truth, since pure truth is created here and now, not reenacted. To change your response to anything, be in the present, that is, the pre-sent moment, the moment that was sent to you and was what it was before you had a thought about it. In other words, be here now, not in the past or the future. The past and the future can exist only in thought. The present moment is the only reality. Stay there. Seek, and you shall find. Do whatever it takes to stay connected with God. God is truth. Don't stop the practices, the prayers, the rituals, the meditations, the readings, the writings, the whatever works for you to stay in touch with all that is. How's that so far?
Great. So far, so good. You've got it. Now, can you live it?
I'm going to try.
Good.
Now, can we go to where we left off? Tell me about time.
There is no time like the present. You've heard that before, I'm sure, but you didn't understand it. Now you do. There is no time but this time. There is no moment but this moment. Now is all there is.
What about yesterday and tomorrow?
Figments of your imagination, constructions of your mind, non-existent in ultimate reality. Everything that ever happened is happening and ever will happen is happening right now.
I don't understand.
And you can't, not completely, but you can begin to, and a beginning grasp is all that is needed here. So, just listen. Time is not a continuum. It is an element of relativity that exists vertically, not horizontally. Don't think of it as a left-to-right thing, a so-called timeline that runs from birth to death for each individual and from some finite point to some finite point in the universe. Time is an up-and-down thing. Think of it as a spindle representing the eternal moment of now. Now picture leaves of paper on the spindle, one atop the other. These are the elements of time, each element separate and distinct, yet each existing simultaneously with the other. All the paper on the spindle at once, as much as there will ever be, as much as there ever was. There is only one moment, this moment, the eternal moment of now. It is right now that everything is happening, and I am glorified. There is no waiting for the glory of God. I made it this way because I just couldn't wait. I was so happy to be who I am that I just couldn't wait to make that manifest in my reality. So boom, here it is, right here, right now, all of it. There is no beginning to this, and there is no end. It, the all of everything, just is. Within the isness is where your experience and your greatest secret lies. You can move in consciousness within the isness to any time or place you choose.
You mean we can time travel?
Indeed, and many of you have. All of you have, in fact. And you do it routinely, usually in what you call your dream state. Most of you are not aware of it. You cannot retain the awareness. But the energy sticks to you like glue. And sometimes there's enough residue that others, sensitive to this energy, can pick up things about your past or your future. They feel or read this residue, and you call them seers and psychics. Sometimes there is enough residue that even you in your limited consciousness are aware you've been here before. Your whole being is suddenly jarred by the realization that you've done all this before.
Deja vu.
Yes, or that wonderful feeling when you meet someone that you've known them all your life, known them for all eternity. That's a spectacular feeling. That's a marvelous feeling. And that's a true feeling. You have known that soul forever. Forever is a right now thing. So you have often looked up or looked down from your piece of paper on the spindle and seen all the other pieces. And you've seen yourself there because a part of you is on every piece.
How is that possible?
I tell you this, you have always been, are now, and always will be. There has never been a time when you were not, nor will there ever be such a time.
But wait. What about the concept of old souls? Aren't some souls older than others?
Nothing is older than anything.
I created it all at once, and all of it exists right now. The experience of older and younger to which you refer has to do with the levels of awareness of a particular soul or aspect of being. You're all aspects of being, simply parts of what is. Each part has the consciousness of the whole embedded within it. Every element carries the imprint. Awareness is the experience of that consciousness being awakened. The individual aspect of the all becomes aware of itself. It becomes, quite literally, self-conscious. And gradually becomes conscious of all others, and then of the fact that there are no others, that all is one. Then, ultimately, of me. Magnificent me.
Boy, you really like you, don't you?
Don't you?
Well, yes. I think you're great.
I agree. I think you're great. That's the only place where you and I disagree. You don't think you're great.
How can I see myself as great when I see all my foibles, all my mistakes, all my evil?
I tell you this, there is no evil.
I wish that could be true.
You are perfect just as you are.
I wish that could be true, too.
It is true. A tree is no less perfect because it is a seedling. A tiny infant is no less perfect than a grown-up. It is perfection itself. Because it cannot do a thing, does not know a thing, that does not make it somehow less perfect. A child makes mistakes. She stands, she toddles, she falls. She stands again, a bit wobbly, hanging onto her mommy's leg. Does that make the child imperfect? I tell you, it is just the opposite. That child is perfection itself, holy and completely adorable. So, too, are you.
But the child hasn't done anything wrong. The child hasn't consciously disobeyed, hurt another, damaged herself.
The child doesn't know right from wrong.
Precisely.
Neither do you.
But I do. I know it's wrong to kill people, and that it's right to love them. I know it's wrong to hurt and right to heal, to make things better. I know it's wrong to take what's not mine, to use another, to be dishonest.
I could show you instances where each of those wrongs would be right.
You're playing with me now.
Not at all. Merely being factual.
If you're saying there are exceptions to every rule, then I agree.
If there are exceptions to a rule, then it is not a rule.
Are you telling me that it's not wrong to kill, to hurt, to take from another?
That depends on what you are trying to do.
Okay, I get it. But that doesn't make these things good. Sometimes one has to do bad things to achieve a good end.
Which doesn't make them bad things at all, then, does it? They are just means to an end.
Are you saying the end justifies the means?
What do you think?
No, absolutely not.
So be it. Don't you see what you're doing here? You're making up the rules as you go along. And don't you see something else? That's perfectly okay. It's what you're supposed to be doing. All of life is a process of deciding who you are and then experiencing that. As you keep expanding your vision, you make up new rules to cover that. As you keep enlarging your idea about yourself, you create new do's and don'ts, yeses and nos to encircle that. These are the boundaries that hold in something which cannot be held in. You cannot hold in you because you are as boundless as the universe. Yet you can create a concept about your boundless self by imagining and then accepting boundaries. In a sense, this is the only way you can know yourself as anything in particular. That which is boundless is boundless. That which is limitless. It cannot exist anywhere because it is everywhere. If it is everywhere, it is nowhere in particular. God is everywhere. Therefore, God is nowhere in particular because to be somewhere in particular, God would have to not be somewhere else, which is not possible for God. There's only one thing that is not possible for God, and that is for God to not be God. God cannot not be, nor can God not be like itself. God cannot ungod itself. I am everywhere, and that's all there is to it. And since I am everywhere, I am nowhere. And if I am nowhere, where am I? Now, here.
I love it. You made this point before, but I love it, so I let you go on.
That's very kind of you. And do you understand it better now? Do you see how you have created your ideas of right and wrong simply to define who you are? Do you see that without these definitions, boundaries, you are nothing? And do you see that, like me, you keep changing the boundaries as you change your ideas of who you are?
Well, I get what you're saying, but it doesn't seem that I've changed the boundaries, my own personal boundaries, very much. To me, it's always been wrong to kill. It's always been wrong to steal. It's always been wrong to hurt another. The largest concepts by which we govern ourselves have been in place since the beginning of time, and most human beings agree on them.
Then why do you have war?
Well, because there will always be some who break the rules. There's a rotten apple in every barrel.
Mm. What I'm going to tell you now and in the passages which follow may be very difficult for some people to understand and accept. It is going to violate much of what is held as truth in your present thought system. Yet I cannot let you go on living with these constructions if this dialogue is to serve you. So we must now, in this second book, meet some of these concepts head-on. It's going to be bumpy going here for a while. Are you ready?
I think so, yes. Thanks for the warning, but what is it that's so dramatic or difficult to understand or accept that you're going to tell me?
I'm going to tell you this. There are no rotten apples. There are only people who disagree with your point of view on things, people who construct a different model of the world. I'm going to tell you this. No persons do anything inappropriate, given their model of the world.
Well, then their model is all messed up. I know what's right and wrong, and because some other people don't, that doesn't make me crazy because I do. They're the ones who are crazy.
I'm sorry to say, that's exactly the attitude which starts wars.
I know. I was doing that on purpose. I was just repeating here what I've heard many other people say. But how can I answer like that? I mean, how can I answer people who talk that way? What could I say?
You could tell them that people's ideas of right and wrong change, and have changed over and over again from culture to culture, time period to time period, religion to religion, place to place, even from family to family and person to person.
You could point out to them that what many people considered right at one time, burning people at the stake for what was considered witchcraft as an example, is considered wrong today. You could tell them that a definition of right and wrong is a definition established not only by time, but also by simple geography. You could allow them to notice that some activities on your planet, prostitution for instance, are illegal in one place and just a few miles down the road, legal in another. And so whether a person is judged as having done something wrong is not a matter of what that person has actually done, but of where he has done it. Now, I'm going to repeat something I said in Book 1, and I know that it was very, very difficult for some to grasp, to understand. Hitler went to heaven.
I'm not sure people are ready for this.
The purpose of this program, and of all the books in the trilogy we are creating, is to create readiness. Readiness for a new paradigm, a new understanding, a larger view, a grander idea.
Well, I'm going to have to ask the questions here that I know so many people are thinking and wanting to ask. How could a man like Hitler have gone to heaven? Every religion in the world, I would think everyone, has declared him condemned and sent straight to hell.
First, he could not have gone to hell because hell doesn't exist. Therefore, there is only one place left to which he could have gone. But that begs the question. The real issue is whether Hitler's actions were wrong. Yet I have said over and over again that there is no right or wrong in the universe. A thing is not intrinsically right or wrong. A thing simply is. Now, your thought that Hitler was a monster is based on the fact that he ordered the killing of millions of people, correct?
Obviously, yes.
Yet what if I told you that what you call death is the greatest thing that could happen to anyone? What then?
I'd find that hard to accept.
You think that life on earth is better than life in heaven? I tell you this, at the moment of your death, you will realize the greatest freedom, the greatest peace, the greatest joy, and the greatest love you have ever known. Shall we therefore punish Brer Fox for throwing Brer Rabbit into the briar patch?
You're ignoring the fact that, however wonderful life after death may be, our lives here should not be ended against our will. We came here to achieve something, to experience something, to learn something, and it's not right that our lives be cut short by some maniacal hoodlum with insane ideas.
First of all, you're not here to learn anything. Life is not a school, and your purpose here is not to learn. It is to remember. And on your larger point, life is often cut short by many things, a hurricane, an earthquake.
That's different. You're talking about an act of God.
Every event is an act of God. Do you imagine that an event could take place if I did not want it to? Do you think that you could so much as lift your little finger if I chose for you not to? You can do nothing if I'm against it. Yet let us continue to explore this idea of wrongful death together. Is it wrong for life to be cut short by disease?
Wrong isn't a word that applies here. Those are natural causes. That's not the same as a human being, like Hitler, murdering people.
What about an accident? A stupid accident?
Same thing. It's unfortunate, tragic, but that's the will of God. We can't peer into God's mind and find out why these things happen. We ought not even try, because God's will is immutable and incomprehensible. To seek to unravel divine mystery is to lust for knowledge beyond our ken. It is sinful.
How do you know?
Because if God wanted us to understand all of this, we would. The fact that we can't, is evidence that it is God's will that we don't.
I see. The fact that you don't understand it is evidence of God's will. The fact that it happens is not evidence of God's will.
I guess I'm not very good at explaining some of this, but I know what I believe.
Do you believe in God's will, that God is all-powerful?
Yes.
Except where Hitler was concerned. What happened there was not God's will.
No.
How can that be?
Well, Hitler violated the will of God.
Now, how do you think he could do that if my will is all-powerful?
You allowed him to.
If I allowed him to, then it was my will that he should.
It would seem that way. But what possible reason could you have? No. It was your will that he have free choice, and it was his will that he do what he did.
You're so close on this. So close. You're right, of course. It was my will that Hitler, that all of you, have free choice. But it is not my will that you be punished unceasingly, unendingly, if you do not make the choice I want you to make. If that were the case, how free have I made your choice? Are you really free to do what you want if you know you'll be made to suffer unspeakably if you do not do what I want? What kind of choice is that?
It isn't a question of punishment. It's just natural law. It's simply a question of consequences.
I see you've been schooled well in all the theological constructions that allow you to hold me as a vengeful God without making me responsible for it. But who made these natural laws? And if we can agree that I must have put them into place, why would I put into place such laws, then give you the power to overcome them? If I didn't want you affected by them, if it was my will that my wonderful beings never should suffer, why would I create the possibility that you could? And then, why would I continue to tempt you day and night to break the laws I've set down?
You don't tempt us. The devil does.
There you go again, making me not responsible. Don't you see that the only way you can rationalize your theology is to render me powerless? Do you understand that the only way your constructions make sense is if mine don't? Are you really comfortable with the idea of a God who creates a being whose actions it cannot control?
I didn't say you can't control the devil. You can control everything. You're God. It's just that you choose not to. You allow the devil to tempt us, to try to win our souls.
But why? Why would I do that if I don't want to have you not return to me?
Because you want us to come to you out of choice, not because there's no choice. Look, you set up heaven and hell so there could be a choice, so we could act out of choosing, not out of simply following a path because there's no other.
I can see how you've come to this idea. That's how I've set it up in your world, so you think that's how it must be in mine. In your reality, good cannot exist without bad, so you believe it must be the same in mine. I tell you this, There is no bad where I am, and there is no evil. There is only the all of everything, the oneness, and the awareness, the experience of that. Mine is the realm of the absolute, where one thing does not exist in relationship to another, but quite independent of anything. Mine is the place where all there is love.
And there are no consequences to anything we think, say, or do on Earth?
Oh, but there are consequences. Look around you.
No, I mean after death.
There is no death. Life goes on forever and ever. Life is. You simply change form.
All right, have it your way. After we change form.
After you change form, consequences cease to exist. There is just knowing. Consequences are an element of relativity. They have no place in the absolute because they depend on linear time and sequential events. These do not exist in the realm of the absolute. In that realm, there is naught but peace and joy and love. In that realm, you will know at last the good news.
That your devil does not exist. That you are who you always thought you were. Goodness and love. Your idea that you might be something else has come from an insane outer world causing you to act insanely. An outer world of judgment and condemnation. Others have judged you, and from their judgments you have judged yourself. Now you want God to judge you, and I will not do it. And because you cannot understand a God who will not act as humans would, you're lost. Your theology is your attempt to find yourself
All our theology's insane, but how can any theology work without a system of reward and punishment?
Everything depends on what you perceive to be the purpose of life, and therefore the basis of the theology. If you believe life exists as a test, a trial, a period of putting you through your paces to see if you are worthy, your theologies begin to make sense. If you believe that life exists as an opportunity, a process through which you discover, remember, that you are worthy and have always been, then your theologies seem insane. If you believe God is an ego-filled God who requires attention, adoration, appreciation, and affection, and will kill to get it, your theologies start to hold together. If you believe that God is without ego or need, but the source of all things, and the seat of all wisdom and love, then your theologies fall apart. If you believe that God is a vengeful God, jealous in his love and wrathful in his anger, then your theologies are perfect. If you believe God is a peaceful God, joyous in her love and passionate in her ecstasy, then your theologies are useless. I tell you this, the purpose of life is not to please God. The purpose of life is to know and to recreate who you are. In so doing, you do please God and glorify her as well.
Why do you keep saying her? Are you a she?
I'm neither a he nor a she.
Occasionally, I use the feminine pronoun to jar you out of your parochial thinking. If you think God is one thing, then you will think God is not another, and that would be a large mistake. Hitler went to heaven for these reasons. There is no hell, so there is no place else for him to go. His actions were what you would call mistakes, the actions of an unevolved being, and mistakes are not punishable by condemnation, but dealt with by providing the chance for correction, for evolution. Those souls were released from their earthly bondage like butterflies emerging from a cocoon. The people who were left behind mourn those deaths only because they do not know of the joy into which those souls entered. No one who has experienced death ever mourns the death of anyone. Your statement that their deaths were nevertheless untimely, and therefore somehow wrong, suggests that something could happen in the universe when it is not supposed to. Yet given who and what I am, that is impossible. Everything occurring in the universe is occurring perfectly. God hasn't made a mistake in a very long time. When you see the utter perfection in everything, not just those things with which you agree, but, and perhaps especially, those things with which you disagree, you achieve mastery.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the very complex theologies we human beings have created. For instance, I was taught as a child that I was a sinner, that all human beings are sinners, that we can't help it. We're born that way. We're born into sin.
Quite an interesting concept. How did anyone get you to believe that?
Well, they told us the story of Adam and Eve. They told us in 4th, 5th, 6th grade catechism that, well, that we may not have sinned, and certainly babies haven't, but Adam and Eve did. And we're their descendants and have thus inherited their guilt as well as their sinful natures. You see, Adam and Eve ate of the forbidden fruit, partook of the knowledge of good and evil, and thus sentenced all of their heirs and descendants to separation from God at birth. All of us are born with this original sin on our souls. Each of us shares in the guilt, so we're given free choice to see, I guess, if we'll still do the same stuff Adam and Eve did and disobey God, or if we can overcome our natural inherited tendency to do bad and do the right thing instead, in spite of the world's temptations.
And if you do bad?
Well, then you send us to hell.
I do.
Yes, unless we repent.
I see.
If we say we're sorry and make a perfect act of contrition, you will save us from hell, but not from all suffering. We still have to go to purgatory for a while to cleanse us of our sins.
Mm-hmm. How long will you have to dwell in purgatory?
Well, it depends. We have to have our sins burned away. It's not too pleasant, I can tell you. And the more sins you've got, the longer it takes to burn them out, the longer we stay. That's what I've been told.
I understand.
But at least we won't go to hell, which is forever. On the other hand, if we die in mortal sin, we go straight to hell.
Mortal sin?
Well, as opposed to venial sin. See, if we die with a venial sin on our soul, we only go to purgatory. Mortal sin sends us right to hell.
Can you give me an example of these various categories of sin you were told about?
Sure. Mortal sins are serious, kind of like major crimes, theological felonies, things like murder, rape, stealing. Venial sins are rather minor, theological misdemeanors. A venial sin would be like missing church on Sunday, or in the old days, eating meat on Friday.
Wait a minute. This God of yours sent you to purgatory if you ate meat on Friday?
Yeah. But not anymore, not since the early 60s. But if we ate meat on Fridays before the early 60s, woe be unto us.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, what happened in the early 60s to make this sin no longer sin?
Well, the Pope said it was no longer a sin.
I see. And this God of yours, he forces you to worship him, to go to church on Sundays, under pain of punishment?
Well, failure to attend Mass is a sin, yes. And if it's not confessed, if you die with that sin on your soul, you'll have to go to purgatory. Yeah?
But what about a child? What about an innocent little child who doesn't know all these rules by which God loves?
Well, if a child dies before it's baptized into the faith, that child goes to limbo.
Goes to where?
Limbo. It's not a place of punishment, but it's not heaven either. It's limbo. You can't be with God, but at least you don't have to go to the devil.
But why couldn't that beautiful, innocent child be with God? The child did nothing wrong.
Well, that's true, but the child was not baptized. See, no matter how faultless or innocent babies are, or any persons for that matter, they have to be baptized to get into heaven. Otherwise, God can't accept them. That's why it's important to have your children baptized quickly, soon after birth.
Who told you all this?
God, through his church.
Which church?
The Holy Roman Catholic Church, of course. That is God's church. In fact, if you're a Catholic and you should happen to attend another church, that's also a sin.
I thought it was a sin not to go to church.
Well, it is. It's also a sin to go to the wrong church.
What's a wrong church?
Any church that's not Roman Catholic. You can't be baptized in the wrong church. You can't get married in the wrong church. You can't even attend the wrong church. Now, I know this for a fact, because as a young man, I wanted to go with my parents to the wedding of a friend. I was actually asked to be in the wedding as an usher. But the nuns told me I shouldn't accept the invitation because it was in the wrong church.
Mm-hmm. Did you obey them?
The nuns? No. I figured God, you, would show up at the other church just as willingly as you showed up at mine, so I went. I stood in the sanctuary in my tuxedo, and I felt fine.
Good. Well, let's see now. We have heaven, we have hell, we have purgatory, we have limbo, we have mortal sin, we have venial sin. Is there anything else?
Well, there's confirmation and communion and confession. There's exorcism and extremotion. There's patron saints and holy days of obligation.
Every day sanctified. Every minute is holy. This now is the holy instant.
Well, yes, but some days are really holy, the holy days of obligation. And on those days, you also have to go to church.
Here we go with the have-tos again. What happens if you don't?
It's a sin.
So you go to hell?
Well, no, you go to purgatory if you die with that sin on your soul. That's why it's good to go to confession, really, as often as you can. Some people go every week, some people every day. That way they can wipe the slate clean, keep it clean, so they could, if they happen to die or something.
Wow. Talk about living in constant fear.
Well, yeah. But you see, that's the purpose of religion, to put the fear of God into us. Then we do right and resist temptation.
Uh-huh. But now, what if you do commit a sin between confessions and then get into an accident or something and die?
Oh, it's okay. No panic. Just make a perfect act of contrition. Oh, my God, I am heartily sorry for having offended thee.
Okay. Enough.
But wait, that's just one of the world's religions. Don't you want to look at some others?
No, I get the picture.
Well, I hope that people don't think I'm simply ridiculing their beliefs.
You're really ridiculing no one, just saying it like it is. It's as American President Harry Truman used to say, "Give 'em hell, Harry," people would shout, and Harry'd say, "I don't give 'em hell, I just quote 'em directly, and it feels like hell."
Boy, we really got sidetracked there. We started out talking about time and ended up talking about organized religion.
Yes, well, that's what it's like talking with God.
It's hard to keep the dialogue limited.
Well, let me see if I can summarize the points you're making. There is no time but this time. There's no moment but this moment. Time is not a continuum. It's an aspect of relativity that exists in an up and down paradigm, with moments or events stacked on top of each other, happening or occurring at the same time. We are constantly traveling between realities in this realm of time, no time, all time, usually in our sleep. Déjà vu is one way we are made aware of this. There has never been a time when we were not, nor will there ever be. The concept of age, as it relates to souls, really has to do with levels of awareness, not length of time. There is no evil. We are perfect just as we are. Wrong is a conceptualization of the mind, based in relative experience. We're making up the rules as we go along, changing them to fit our present reality, and that's perfectly all right. It's as it should be, must be, if we are to be evolving beings. Hitler went to heaven. Everything that happens is God's will. Everything. That includes not just hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes, but Hitler as well. The secret of understanding is knowing the purpose behind all events. There are no punishments after death, and all consequences exist only in relative experience, not in the realm of the absolute. Human theologies are mankind's insane attempt to explain an insane God who does not exist. The only way human theologies make sense is if we accept a God who makes no sense at all. How's that? Another good summary?
Excellent.
Good, because now I've got a million questions. Why did Hitler go to heaven? I know you just tried to explain this, but somehow I need more. And what is the purpose behind all events? And how does this larger purpose relate to Hitler and other despots?
Let's go to purpose first. All events, all experiences, have as their purpose the creating of opportunity. Events and experiences are opportunities, nothing more, nothing less. It would be a mistake to judge them as works of the devil, punishments from God, rewards from heaven, or anything in between. They are simply events and experiences, things that happen. It is what we think of them, do about them, be in response to them that gives them meaning. Events and experiences are opportunities drawn to you, created by you individually or collectively through consciousness. Consciousness creates experience. You are attempting to raise your consciousness. You have drawn these opportunities to you in order that you might use them as tools in the creation and experiencing of who you are, Who you are is a being of higher consciousness than you are now exhibiting. Because it is my will that you should know and experience who you are, I allow you to draw to yourself whatever event or experience you choose to create in order to do that. Other players in the universal game join you from time to time, either as brief encounters, peripheral participants, temporary teammates, long-term interactors, relatives and family, dearly loved ones, or life path partners. These souls are drawn to you by you. You are drawn to them by them. It is a mutually creative experience expressing the choices and desires of both. No one comes to you by accident. There is no such thing as coincidence. Nothing occurs at random. Life is not a product of chance. Events, like people, are drawn to you, by you, for your own purposes. Larger planetary experiences and developments are the result of group consciousness. They are drawn to your group as a whole as a result of the choices and desires of the group as a whole.
What do you mean by the term, your group?
Group consciousness is something that is not widely understood, yet it is extremely powerful and can, if you're not careful, often overcome individual consciousness. You must always, therefore, endeavor to create group consciousness wherever you go and with whatever you do, if you wish your larger life experience on the planet to be harmonious. If you are in a group whose consciousness does not reflect your own, and you are unable at this time to effectively alter the group consciousness, it is wise to leave the group, or the group could lead you. It will go where it wants to go, regardless of where you want to go. If you cannot find a group whose consciousness matches your own, be the source of one. Others of like consciousness will be drawn to you. Individuals in smaller groups must affect larger groups, and ultimately the largest group of all, which is all humankind, for there to be permanent and significant change on your planet. Your world and the condition it is in is a reflection of the total combined consciousness of everyone living there. As you can see by looking around you, much work is left to be done, unless, of course, you are satisfied with your world as it is. Surprisingly, most people are. That is why the world does not change. Most people are satisfied with a world in which differences, not similarities, are honored, and disagreements are settled by conflict and war. Most people are satisfied with a world in which survival is for the fittest, might is right, competition is required, and winning is called the highest good. If such a system happens also to produce losers, so be it, so long as you are not among them. Most people are satisfied, even though such a model produces people who are often killed when they are judged wrong, starved and rendered homeless when they are losers, oppressed and exploited when they are not strong. Most people define wrong as that which is different from them. Religious differences in particular are not tolerated, nor are many social, economic, or cultural differences. Exploitation of the underclass is justified by the self-congratulatory pronouncements from the upper class of how much better off their victims are now than they were before these exploitations. By this measure, the upper class can ignore the issue of how all people ought to be treated if one were being truly fair, rather than merely making a horrible situation a tiny bit better and profiting obscenely in the bargain. Most people laugh when one suggests any kind of system other than the one currently in place, saying that behaviors such as competing and killing and the victor taking the spoils are what makes this civilization great. Most people even think there is no other natural way to be, that it is the nature of humans to behave in this manner, and that to act any other way would kill the inner spirit that drives man to succeed. No one asks the question, succeed at what? Difficult as it is for truly enlightened beings to understand, most people on your planet believe in this philosophy, and that is why most people don't care about the suffering masses, the oppression of minorities, the anger of the underclass, or the survival needs of anyone but themselves and their immediate families. Most people do not see that they are destroying their earth, the very planet which gives them life, because their actions seek only to enhance their quality of life. Amazingly, they are not farsighted enough to observe that short-term gains can produce long-term losses, and often do, and will. Most people are threatened by group consciousness, a concept such as the collective good, a one-world overview, or a God who exists in unity with all creation rather than separate from it. This fear of anything leading to unification, and your planet's glorification of all that separates, produce division, disharmony, discord. Yet you do not seem to have the ability even to learn from your own experience, and so you continue your behaviors with the same results. The inability to experience the suffering of another as one's own is what allows such suffering to continue. Separation breeds indifference, false superiority. Unity produces compassion, genuine equality. The events which occur on your planet, which have occurred regularly for 3,000 years, are, as I've said, a reflection of the collective consciousness of your group, the whole group on your planet. That level of consciousness could best be described as primitive.
Yes. But we seem to have digressed here from the original question.
Not really. You asked about Hitler. The Hitler experience was made possible as a result of group consciousness. Many people want to say that Hitler manipulated a group, in this case his countrymen, through the cunning and the mastery of his rhetoric. But this conveniently lays all the blame at Hitler's feet, which is exactly where the mass of people want it. But Hitler could do nothing without the cooperation and support and willing submission of millions of people. The subgroup, which called itself Germans, must assume an enormous burden of responsibility for the Holocaust, as must to some degree the larger group called humans, which, if it did nothing else, allowed itself to remain indifferent and apathetic to the suffering in Germany until it reached so massive a scale that even the most cold-hearted isolationists could no longer ignore it. You see, it was collective consciousness which provided fertile soil for the growth of the Nazi movement. Hitler seized the moment, but he did not create it. It's important to understand the lesson here. A group consciousness, which speaks constantly of separation and superiority, produces loss of compassion on a massive scale, and loss of compassion is inevitably followed by loss of conscience. A collective concept rooted in strict nationalism ignores the plights of others, yet makes everyone else responsible for yours, thus justifying retaliation, rectification, and war. Auschwitz was the Nazi solution to an attempt to rectify the Jewish problem. The horror of the Hitler experience was not that he perpetrated it on the human race, but that the human race allowed him to. The astonishment is not only that a Hitler came along, but also that so many others went along. The shame is not only that Hitler killed millions of Jews, but also that millions of Jews had to be killed before Hitler was stopped. The purpose of the Hitler experience was to show humanity to itself. Throughout history, you have had remarkable teachers, each presenting extraordinary opportunities to remember who you really are. These teachers have shown you the highest and the lowest of the human potential. They have presented vivid, breathtaking examples of what it can mean to be human, of where one can go with the experience, of where the lot of you can and will go given your consciousness. The thing to remember, consciousness is everything and creates your experience. Group consciousness is powerful and produces outcomes of unspeakable beauty or ugliness. The choice is always yours. If you are not satisfied with the consciousness of your group, seek to change it. The best way to change the consciousness of others is by your example. If your example is not enough, form your own group. You be the source of the consciousness you wish others to experience. They will when you do. It begins with you. Everything. All things. You want the world to change? Change things in your own world. Hitler gave you a golden opportunity to do that. The Hitler experience, like the Christ experience, is profound in its implications and the truths it revealed to you about you. Yet those larger awarenesses live, in the case of Hitler or Buddha, Genghis Khan or Hare Krishna, Attila the Hun or Jesus the Christ, only so long as your memories of them live. That is why Jews build monuments to the Holocaust and ask you never to forget it, for there is a little bit of Hitler in all of you, and it is only a matter of degree. Wiping out a people is wiping out a people, whether at Auschwitz or Wounded Knee.
So, Hitler was sent to us to provide us a lesson about the horrors man can commit, the levels to which man can sink.
Hitler was not sent to you. Hitler was created by you. He arose out of your collective consciousness and could not have existed without it. That is the lesson. The consciousness of separation, segregation, superiority, of we versus they, of us and them, is what creates the Hitler experience. The consciousness of divine brotherhood, of unity, of oneness, of ours rather than yours, mine, is what creates the Christ experience. When the pain is ours, not just yours, when the joy is ours, not just mine, when the whole life experience is ours, then it is at last truly that, a whole life experience.
Why did Hitler go to heaven?
Because Hitler did nothing wrong. Hitler simply did what he did. I remind you again that for many years millions thought he was right. How then could he help but think so? If you float out a crazy idea and 10 million people agree with you, you might not think you're so crazy. The world decided finally that Hitler was wrong. That is to say, the world's people made a new assessment of who they are and who they chose to be in relationship to the Hitler experience. He held up a yardstick. He set a parameter, a border against which we could measure and limit our ideas about ourselves. Christ did the same thing at the other end of the spectrum. There have been other Christs and other Hitlers, and there will be again. Be ever vigilant then, for people of both high and low consciousness walk among you, even as you walk among others. Which consciousness do you take with you?
I still don't understand how Hitler could have gone to heaven. How could he have been rewarded for what he did?
First, understand that death is not an end, but a beginning. Not a horror, but a joy. It's not a closing down, but an opening up. The happiest moment of your life will be the moment it ends. That's because it doesn't end, but only goes on in ways so magnificent, so full of peace and wisdom and joy as to make it difficult to describe and impossible for you to comprehend. It was the Buddha who said, "Life is suffering." The Buddha was right.
But even if I accept that, Hitler didn't know he was actually doing good. He thought he was doing bad.
No, he didn't think he was doing something bad. He actually thought he was helping his people. And that's what you don't understand. No one does anything that is wrong, given their model of the world. If you think Hitler acted insanely and all the while knew that he was insane, then you understand nothing of the complexity of human experience. Hitler thought he was doing good for his people, and his people thought so too. That was the insanity of it. The largest part of the nation agreed with him. You have declared that Hitler was wrong. Good. By this measure, you have come to define yourself. Know more about yourself. Good. But don't condemn Hitler for showing you that. Someone had to. You cannot know cold unless there is hot, up unless there is down, left unless there is right. Don't condemn the one and bless the other. To do so is to fail to understand. For centuries, people have been condemning Adam and Eve. They are said to have committed original sin. I tell you this, it was the original blessing. For without this event, the partaking of the knowledge of good and evil, you would not even know the two possibilities existed. Indeed, before the so-called fall of Adam, these two possibilities did not exist. There was no evil. Everyone and everything existed in a state of constant perfection. It was literally paradise. Yet you didn't know it was paradise, could not experience it as perfection, because you knew nothing else. Shall you then condemn Adam and Eve, or thank them? And what, say you, shall I do with Hitler? I tell you this, God's love and God's compassion, God's wisdom and God's forgiveness, God's intention and God's purpose are large enough to include the most heinous crime and the most heinous criminal. You may not agree with this, but it doesn't matter. You have just learned what you came here to discover.
Have you said all you're going to say about time?
I've said all you need to know. There is no time. All things exist simultaneously.
All events occur at once. This book is being written, and as it's being written, it's already written. It already exists. In fact, that's where you're getting all this information, from the book that already exists. You're merely bringing it into form. This is what is meant by, even before you ask, I will have answered.
This information about time all seems, well, interesting, but rather esoteric. Does it have any application to real life?
A true understanding of time allows you to live much more peacefully within your reality of relativity, where time is experienced as a movement, a flow, rather than a constant. It is you who are moving, not time. Time has no movement. There's only one moment. At some level, you deeply understand this. That is why when something really magnificent or significant occurs in your life, you often say it is as if time stands still. It does. And when you do also, you often experience one of those life-defining moments.
Whew, I find this hard to believe. How can this be possible?
Your science has already proven this mathematically. Formulas have been written showing that if you get into a spaceship and fly far enough, fast enough, you could swing back around toward the Earth and watch yourself taking off. This demonstrates that time is not a movement, but a field through which you move, in this case on Spaceship Earth. You say it takes 365 days to make a year, yet what is a day? You've decided, quite arbitrarily I might add, that a day is the time it takes your spaceship to make one complete revolution on its axis. How do you know that it's made such a spin? You can't feel it moving. You've chosen a reference point in the heavens, the sun. You say it takes a full day for the portion of the spaceship you are on to face the sun, turn away from the sun, then face the sun again. You've divided this day into 24 hours. Again, quite arbitrarily. You could just as easily have said 10 or 73. Then you divided each hour into minutes. You said each hourly unit contains 60 smaller units called minutes, and that each of those contains 60 tiny units called seconds. One day you noticed that the Earth was not only spinning, it was also flying. You saw that it was moving through space around the sun. You carefully calculated that it took 365 revolutions of the Earth for the Earth itself to revolve around the sun. This number of Earth spins you called a year. Things got kind of messy when you decided that you wanted to divide up a year into units smaller than a year but larger than a day. You created the week and the month, and you managed to get the same number of months in every year, but not the same number of days in every month. You couldn't find a way to divide an odd number of days, 365, by an even number of months, 12, so you just decided that some months contain more days than others. You felt you had to stay with 12 as the yearly subdivider because that was the number of lunar cycles you observed your moon moving through during a year. In order to reconcile these three spatial events, revolutions around the sun, spins of the Earth on its axis, and moon cycles, you simply adjusted the number of days in each month. Even this device didn't solve all the problems because your earlier inventions kept creating a buildup of time which you didn't know what to do with. So you also decided that every so often 1 year would have to have a whole day more. You called this leap year and joked about it, but you actually lived by such a construction. And then you called my explanation of time unbelievable. You've just as arbitrarily created decades and centuries, based interestingly on tens, not 12s, to further measure the passage of time. But all along, what you've really been doing is merely devising a way to measure movements through space. Thus we see that it is not time which passes, but objects which pass through and move around in a static field which you call space. Time is simply your way of counting movements. Scientists deeply understand this connection, therefore speak in terms of the space-time continuum. Dr. Einstein and others realized that time was a mental construction, a relational concept. Time was what it was relative to the space that existed between objects. If the universe is expanding, which it is, then it takes longer for the Earth to revolve around the sun today than it did 1 billion years ago. There's more space to cover. Thus it took more minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades, and centuries for all these cyclical events to occur recently than it did in 1492. When is a day not a day? When is a year not a year? Your new, highly sophisticated timing instruments now record this time discrepancy, and every year clocks around the world are adjusted to accommodate a universe that won't sit still. This is called Greenwich Mean Time, and it is mean because it makes a liar out of the universe. Einstein theorized that it wasn't time which was moving, but he who was moving through space at a given rate. All he had to do was change the amount of space between objects, or change the rate of speed with which he moved through space from one object to another to alter time. It was his general theory of relativity which expanded your modern-day understanding of the correlation between time and space. You now may begin to understand why, if you make a long journey through space and return, you may have aged only 10 years, while your friends on Earth will have aged 30. The farther you go, the more you will warp the space-time continuum, and the less your chances when you land of finding alive on the Earth anyone who was there when you left. However, if scientists on Earth in some future time developed a way to propel themselves faster, they could cheat the universe and stay in sync with real time on Earth, returning to find that the same time had passed on Earth as had passed on the spaceship. Obviously, if even more propulsion were available, one could return to the Earth before one took off. That is to say, time on Earth would pass more slowly than time on the spaceship. You could come back in 10 of your years, and the Earth would have aged only 4. Increase the speed, and 10 years in space might mean 10 minutes on Earth. Now, come across a fold in the fabric of space. Einstein and others believed such folds exist, and they were correct. And you are suddenly propelled across space in one infinitesimal moment. Could such a time-space phenomenon literally fling you back into time? It should not be quite as difficult to now see that time does not exist except as a construction of your mentality. Everything that's ever happened and is ever going to happen is happening now. The ability to observe it merely depends on your point of view, your place in space. If you were in my place, you could see it all, right now. Comprehend?
Wow. I'm beginning to. On a theoretical level, yes.
Good. I've explained it to you here very simply, so that a child could understand it. It may not make good science, but it produces good comprehension.
Right now, physical objects are limited in terms of their speed, but non-physical objects, my thoughts, my soul, could theoretically move through the ether at incredible speeds.
Exactly. Precisely. And that is what happens often in dreams and other out-of-body and psychic experiences. You now understand déjà vu. You probably have been there before.
But if everything has already happened, then it follows that I'm powerless to change my future. Is this predestination?
No, don't buy into that. That is not true. In fact, this setup should serve you, not disserve you. You are always at a place of free will and total choice. Being able to see into the future or get others to do it for you should enhance your ability to live the life you want, not limit it.
How? I need help here.
If you see a future event or experience you do not like, don't choose it. Choose again. Select another. Change or alter your behavior so as to avoid the undesired outcome.
But how can I avoid that which has already happened?
It has not happened to you yet. You are at a place in the space-time continuum where you are not consciously aware of the occurrence. You do not know it has happened. You have not remembered your future. This forgetfulness is the secret of all time. It is what makes it possible for you to play the great game of life. I'll explain later. What you do not know is not so. Since you do not remember your future, it has not happened to you yet. A thing happens only when it is experienced. A thing is experienced only when it is known. Now let's say you've been blessed with a brief glimpse, a split-second knowing of your future. What's happened is that your spirit, the non-physical part of you, has simply sped to another place on the space-time continuum and brought back some residual energy, some images or impressions of that moment or event. These you can feel, or sometimes another who has developed a metaphysical gift can feel or see these images and energies that are swirling about you. If you don't like what you sense about your future, step away from that. Just step away from it. In that instant, you change your experience, and every one of you breathes a sigh of relief.
Whoa, wait a minute, whoa.
You must know, you are now ready to be told, that you exist at every level of the space-time continuum simultaneously. That is, your soul always was, always is, and always will be. World without end. Amen.
I exist in more places than one?
Of course. You exist everywhere, and at all times.
There is a me in the future and a me in the past?
Well, future and past do not exist, as we've just taken pains to understand. But using those words as you have been using them, yes.
There's more than one of me?
There is only one of you. but you are much larger than you think.
So when the me that exists now changes something he doesn't like about his future, the me that exists in the future no longer has that as part of his experience?
Essentially, yes. The whole mosaic changes. But he never loses the experience he's given himself. He's just relieved and happy that you don't have to go through that.
But the me in the past has yet to experience this, so he walks right into it?
In a sense, yes. But of course, you can help him.
I can?
Sure. First, by changing what the you in front of you experienced. The you behind you may never have to experience it. It is by this device that your soul evolves. In the same way, the future you got help from his own future self, thus helping you avoid what he did not. Did you follow that?
Yeah. And it's intriguing. But I now have another question. What about past lives? If I've always been me in the past and in the future, how could I have been someone else, another person, in a past life?
You are a divine being, capable of more than one experience at the same time.
And able to divide yourself into as many different selves as you choose. You can live the same life over and over again in different ways, as I've just explained, and you can also live different lives at different times on the continuum. Thus, all the while you're being you here now, you can also be and have been other selves in other times and places.
Good grief, this gets complicated-er and complicated-er.
Yes, and we've really only just scratched the surface here. Just know this. You are a being of divine proportion, knowing no limitation. A part of you is choosing to know yourself as your presently experienced identity. Yet this is by far not the limit of your being, although you think that it is.
Why?
You must think that it is, or you cannot do what you've given yourself this life to do.
And what is that? You've told me before, but tell me again, here and now.
You are using all of life, all of many lives, to be and decide who you really are, to choose and to create who you really are, to experience and to fulfill your current idea about yourself. You are in an eternal moment of self-creation and self-fulfillment through the process of self-expression. You have drawn the people, events, and circumstances of your life to you as tools with which to fashion the grandest version of the greatest vision you ever had about yourself. This process of creation and recreation is ongoing, never-ending, and multi-layered. It is all happening right now and on many levels. In your linear reality, you see the experience as one of past, present, and future. You imagine yourself to have one life, or perhaps many, but surely only one at a time. But what if there were no time? Then you'd be having all your lives at once. You are. You are living this life, your presently realized life, in your past, your present, your future, all at once. Have you ever had a strange foreboding about some future event so powerful that it made you turn away from it? In your language, you call that premonition. From my viewpoint, it is simply an awareness you suddenly have of something you've just experienced in your future. Your future you is saying, hey, this was no fun. Don't do this. You are also living other lives, what you call past lives, right now as well, although you experience them as having been in your past, if you experience them at all. And that is just as well. It would be very difficult for you to play this wonderful game of life if you had full awareness of what is going on. Even this description offered here cannot give you that. If it did, the game would be over. The process depends on the process being complete, as it is, including your lack of total awareness at this stage. So bless the process and accept it as the greatest gift of the kindest Creator. Embrace the process and move through it with peace and wisdom and joy. Use the process and transform it from something you endure to something you engage as a tool in the creation of the most magnificent experience of all time, the fulfillment of your divine self.
How? How can I best do that?
Do not waste the precious moments of this, your present reality, seeking to unveil all of life's secrets. Those secrets are secrets for a reason. Grant your God the benefit of the doubt. Use your now moment for the highest purpose, the creation and the expression of who you really are. Decide who you are, who you want to be, and then do everything in your power to be that. Use what I have told you about time as a framework within your limited understanding upon which to place the constructions of your grandest idea. If an impression comes to you about the future, honor it. If an idea comes to you about a past life, see if it has any use for you. Don't simply ignore it. Most of all, if a way is made known to you to create, display, express, and experience your divine self in ever more glory right here, right now, follow that way. And a way will be made known to you because you have asked. Producing this book is a sign of your asking, for you could not be producing it right now before your very eyes without an open mind, an open heart, and a soul which is ready to know. The same is true of those who are now listening to it, for they have created it too. How else could they now be experiencing it? Everyone is creating everything now being experienced, which is another way of saying that I am creating everything now being experienced, for I am everyone. Are you getting the symmetry here?
Are you seeing the perfection? It is all contained in a single truth. There is only one of us.
Tell me about space.
Space is time demonstrated. In truth, there is no such thing as space, pure, empty space with nothing in it. Everything is something. Even the emptiest space is filled with vapors so thin, so stretched out over infinite areas that they seem to not be there. Then after the vapors are gone, there is energy, pure energy. This manifests as vibration, oscillations, movements of the all at a particular frequency. Invisible energy is the space which holds matter together. Once, using your linear time as a model, all the matter in the universe was condensed into a tiny speck. You cannot imagine the denseness of this, but that is because you think that matter as it now exists is dense. Actually, what you now call matter is mostly space. All solid objects are 2% solid matter and 98% air. The space between the tiniest particles of matter in all objects is enormous. It is something like the distance between heavenly bodies in your night sky. Yet these objects you call solid. At one point, the entire universe actually was solid. There was virtually no space between the particles of matter. All the matter had the space taken out of it. And with the enormous space gone, that matter filled an area smaller than the head of a pin. There was actually a time before that time when there was no matter at all, just the purest form of highest vibration energy, which you would call antimatter. This was the time, before the physical universe as you know it existed. Nothing existed as matter. Some people conceive of this as paradise or heaven because nothing was the matter. It's no accident that today in your language, when you suspect something is wrong, you say, "What's the matter?" In the beginning, pure energy, me, vibrated, oscillated so fast as to form matter, all the matter of the universe. You too can perform the same feat. In fact, you do every day. Your thoughts are pure vibration, and they can and do create physical matter. If enough of you hold the same thoughts, you can impact, even create portions of your physical universe.
Is the universe now expanding?
At a rate of speed you can't imagine.
Will it expand forever?
No, there will come a time when the energies driving the expansion will dissipate, and the energies holding things together will take over, pulling everything back together again.
You mean the universe will contract?
Yes. Everything will quite literally fall into place, and you'll have paradise again. No matter, pure energy. In other words, me. In the end, it'll all come back to me. That is the origin of your phrase, it all comes down to this.
But that means that we will no longer exist.
Not in physical form, but you will always exist. You cannot not exist. You are that which is.
What will happen after the universe collapses?
The whole process will start all over again. There will be another so-called Big Bang, and another universe will be born. It will expand and contract, and then it will do the same thing all over again and again and again, forever and ever, world without end. This is the breathing in and breathing out of God.
Well, this is all, again, very interesting, but it has very little to do with my everyday life.
As I said before, spending an inordinate amount of time trying to unravel the deepest mysteries of the universe is probably not the most efficient use of your life. Yet there are benefits to be gained from these simple layman's allegories and descriptions of the larger process.
Like what?
Like understanding that all things are cyclical.
Including life itself. Understanding about the life of the universe will help you to understand about the life of the universe inside you. Life moves in cycles. Everything is cyclical. Everything. When you understand this, you become more able to enjoy the process, not merely endure it. All things move cyclically. There's a natural rhythm to life, and everything moves to that rhythm. Everything goes with that flow. Thus it is written, for everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. Wise is the one who understands this. Clever is the one who uses it. Few people understand the rhythms of life more than women.
Women live their whole lives by rhythm. They are in rhythm with life itself. Women are more able to go with the flow than men. Men want to push, pull, resist, direct the flow. Women experience it, then mold with it to produce harmony. A woman hears the melody of flowers in the wind. She sees the beauty of the unseen. She feels the tugs and pulls and urges of life. She knows when it is time to run and time to rest, time to laugh and time to cry, time to hold on and time to let go. Most women leave their bodies gracefully. Most men fight the departure. Women treat their bodies more gracefully when they are in them, too.
Men treat their bodies horribly. That is the same way they treat life. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. I'm speaking here in generalities. I'm speaking of how things have been until now. I'm speaking in the broadest terms. But if you look at life, if you admit to yourself what you are seeing, have seen, if you acknowledge what is so, you may find truth in this generality.
Yet that makes me feel sad, you know. That makes me feel as though women are somehow superior beings, that they have more of the right stuff than men.
Part of the glorious rhythm of life is the yin and the yang. One aspect of being is not more perfect or better than another. Both aspects are simply and wonderfully that aspect. Men obviously embody other reflections of divinity, which women eye with equal envy. Yet it has been said that being a man is your testing ground, or your probation. When you have been a man long enough, when you have suffered enough through your own foolishness, when you have inflicted enough pain through the calamities of your own creation, when you have hurt others enough to stop your own behaviors, to replace aggression with reason, contempt with compassion, always winning with no one losing,
then you may become a woman. When you have learned that might is not right, that strength is not power over, but power with, that absolute power demands of others absolutely nothing, when you understand these things, then you may deserve to wear a woman's body, for you will at last have understood her essence.
Then a woman is better than a man.
no, not better, different. It is you making that judgment. There is no such thing as better or worse in objective reality. There is only what is and what you wish to be. Hot is no better than cold, up no better than down, a point I've made before. Hence, female is no better than male. It just is what it is, just as you are what you are. Yet none of you are restricted, more limited. You can be what you wish to be. Choose what you wish to experience. In this lifetime or the next after that, just as you did in the lifetime before. Each of you is always a choice. Each of you is made up of all of it. There is male and female in each of you. Express and experience that aspect of you which it pleases you to express and experience. Yet know that it is all open to each of you.
I don't want to get off onto other topics here. I just want to stay with this male-female paradigm for a while longer. You promised to discuss in much more detail the whole sexual aspect of this duality.
Yes, I think it is time that we talked, you and I, about sex.
Why did you create two sexes? Was this the only way you could figure for us to recreate? How should we deal with this incredible experience called sexuality?
Not with shame, that's for sure, and not with guilt, and not with fear. For shame is not virtue, and guilt is not goodness, and fear is not honor. And not with lust, for lust is not passion, and not with abandon, for abandon is not freedom, and not with aggressiveness, for aggressiveness is not eagerness, and obviously not with ideas of control or power or domination, for these have nothing to do with love. But may sex be used for purposes of simple personal gratification? The surprising answer is yes, because personal gratification is just another word for self-love. Personal gratification has gotten a bad rap through the years, which is the main reason so much guilt is attached to sex. You are told you are not to use for personal gratification something which is intensely personally gratifying. This obvious contradiction is apparent to you, but you don't know where to go with the conclusion. So you decide that if you feel guilty about how good you feel during and after sex, that will at least make it all right. It's not unlike the famous singer you all know, whom I will not name here, who receives millions of dollars for singing her songs. Asked to comment on her incredible success and the riches it has brought her, she said, "I feel almost guilty because I love doing this so much." The implication is clear. If it's something you love doing, you should not also be rewarded additionally with money. Most people earn money by doing something they hate, or something that is at least hard work, not endless joy. So the world's message is, if you feel negatively about it, then you can enjoy it. Guilt is often used by you in your attempt to feel bad about something you feel good about, and thus reconcile yourself with God, who you think does not want you to feel good about anything. You are especially not to feel good about joys of the body, and absolutely not about, as your grandmother used to whisper, sex. Well, the good news is it's all right to love sex. It's also all right to love yourself. In fact, it's mandatory. What does not serve you is to become addicted to sex or anything else. But it is okay to fall in love with it. Practice saying this 10 times each day. I love sex. Practice saying this 10 times. I love money. Now, you want a really tough one? Try saying this 10 times. I love me. Here are some other things you are not supposed to love. Practice loving them. Power, glory, fame, success, winning. You want some more? Try these. You should really feel guilty if you love these. The adulation of others. Being better. Having more. Knowing how. Knowing why. Had enough? Wait, here's the ultimate guilt. You should feel the ultimate guilt if you feel that you know God. Isn't that interesting? All through your life, you have been made to feel guilty about the things you want most. Yet I tell you this, love, love, love the things you desire, for your love of them draws them to you. These things are the stuff of life. When you love them, you love life. When you declare that you desire them, you announce that you choose all the good that life has to offer. So choose sex, all the sex you can get. And choose power, all the power you can muster. And choose fame, all the fame you can attain. And choose success, all the success you can achieve. And choose winning, all the winning you can experience. Yet do not choose sex instead of love, but as a celebration of it. And do not choose power over, but power with. And do not choose fame as an end in itself, but as a means to a larger end. And do not choose success at the expense of others, but as a tool with which to assist others. And do not choose winning at any cost, but winning that costs others nothing, and even brings them gain as well. Go ahead and choose the adulation of others, but see all others as beings upon which you can shower adulation, and do it. Go ahead and choose being better, but not better than others, rather better than you were before. Go ahead and choose having more, but only so that you have more to give. And yes, choose knowing how and knowing why, so that you can share all knowledge with others. And by all means, choose to know God. In fact, choose this first, and all else will follow. There is a point between you and every other person, place, or thing which exists. It is here that two energies meet, forming a third, much less dense, but no less real energy unit. Everyone and everything on the planet and in the universe is emitting energy in every direction. This energy mixes with all other energies, crisscrossing in patterns of complexity beyond the ability of your most powerful computers to analyze. The crisscrossing, intermingling, intertwining energies racing between everything that you call physical is what holds physicality together. This is the matrix of which I have spoken. It is along this matrix that you send signals to each other, messages, meanings, healings, and other physical effects, created sometimes by individuals, but mostly by mass consciousness. These innumerable energies are, as I have explained, attracted to each other. This is called the law of attraction. In this law, like attracts like. Like thoughts attract like thoughts along the matrix. And when enough of these similar energies clump together, so to speak, their vibrations become heavier, they slow down, and some become matter. Thoughts do create physical form, and when many people are thinking the same thing, there is a very high likelihood their thoughts will form a reality. That is why "we'll pray for you" is such a powerful statement. There are enough testimonies to the effectiveness of unified prayer to fill a book.
It is also true that unprayer-like thoughts can create effects. A worldwide consciousness of fear, for instance, or anger, or lack or insufficiency can create that experience across the globe or within a given locale where those collective ideas are strongest. The Earth nation you call the United States, for example, has long thought itself to be a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is not a coincidence that this nation rose to become the most prosperous on earth. It is also not surprising that this nation is gradually losing all that it has worked so hard to create. But this nation seems to have lost its vision. The terms under God, indivisible, meant just that. They expressed the universal truth of unity, oneness, a matrix very difficult to destroy. But the matrix has been weakened. Religious freedom has become religious righteousness, bordering on religious intolerance. Individual freedom has all but vanished as individual responsibility has disappeared. The notion of individual responsibility has been distorted to mean every man for himself. This is the new philosophy that imagines itself to be hearkening back to the early American tradition of rugged individualism. But the original sense of individual responsibility upon which the American vision and the American dream was based found its deepest meaning and its highest expression in the concept of brotherly love. What made America great was not that every man struggled for his own survival, but that every man accepted individual responsibility for the survival of all. America was a nation that would not turn its back on the hungry, would never say no to the needy, would open its arms to the weary and the homeless, and would share its abundance with the world. Yet as America became great, Americans became greedy. Not all, but many. And as time went on, more and more. As Americans saw how good it was possible to have it, they sought to have it even better. Yet there was only one way to have more and more and more. Someone else had to have less and less and less. As greed replaced greatness in the American character, there was less room for compassion for the least among the people. The less fortunate were told it was their own damned fault. They didn't have more. After all, America was the land of opportunity, was it not? No one except the less fortunate found it possible to admit that America's opportunity was limited, institutionally, to those already on the inside track. In general, these have not included many minorities, such as those of certain skin color or gender. Americans became arrogant internationally as well. As millions starved across the globe, Americans threw away enough food each day to feed entire nations. America was generous with some, yes, but increasingly her foreign policy came to be an extension of her own vested interests. America helped others when it served America to do so. That is, when it served America's power structure, America's richest elite, with a military machine that protected those elite and their collective assets. America's founding ideal, brotherly love, had been eroded. Now any talk of being your brother's keeper is met with a new brand of Americanism. A sharp mind toward what it takes to hold on to one's own, and a sharp word to any among the less fortunate who would dare ask for their fair share, for their grievances to be redressed. Each person must take responsibility for herself or himself. That is undeniably true. But America and your world can truly work only when every person is willing to stand responsible for all of you as a whole.
So collective consciousness produces collective results.
Exactly. And this has been demonstrated time and time again throughout all of your recorded history. The matrix draws itself into itself, exactly as your scientists describe the so-called black hole phenomenon. It pulls like energy to like energy, even drawing physical objects toward each other. Those objects must then repel each other, move away, or they will merge forever, in effect disappearing in their present form and taking on a new form. All beings of consciousness intuitively know this, so all beings of consciousness move away from the permanent melding in order to maintain their relationship to all other beings. If they did not, they would meld into all other beings and experience the oneness forever. This is the state from which we have come. Having moved away from this state, we are constantly re-attracted to it. This ebb and flow, to and fro movement, is the basic rhythm of the universe and everything in it. This is sex, the synergistic energy exchange. You're constantly being attracted, compelled toward union with one another and with all that is in the matrix. Then, at the moment of unity, being repelled by conscious choice away from that unity. Your choice is to remain free of it so that you can experience it. For once you become part of that unity and remain there, you cannot know it as unity, since you no longer know separation. Put another way, for God to know itself as the all of it, God must know itself as not the all of it. In you and in every other energy unit of the universe, God knows itself as the parts of all, and thus gives itself the possibility of knowing itself as the all in its own experience. I can only experience what I am by experiencing what I am not. Yet I am what I am not. And so you see the divine dichotomy. Hence the statement, I am that I am.
Now, as I said, this natural ebb and flow, this natural rhythm of the universe, typifies all of life, including the very movements that create life in your reality. Toward each other you are compelled, as if by some urgent force, only to pull away and separate, only to urgently push toward each other again, once more to separate, and again to hungrily, passionately, urgently seek total union. Together, apart, together, apart, together, apart, your bodies dance in a movement so basic, so instinctual, that you have very little conscious awareness of deliberate action. At some point, you shift into automatic. No one needs to tell your bodies what to do. They simply do it with the urgency of all of life. This is life itself, expressing itself as life itself. And this is life itself producing new life in the bosom of its own experience. All of life works on such a rhythm. All of life is the rhythm. And so, all of life is imbued with the gentle rhythm of God, what you call the cycles of life. Food grows in such cycles. Seasons come and go. Planets spin and circle. Suns explode and implode and explode again. Universes breathe in and breathe out. All of it happens, all of it, in cycles, in rhythms, in vibrations, matching the frequencies of God, Goddess, the All. For God is the All, and the Goddess is everything, and there is nothing else that is, and all that ever was is now, and ever shall be, is your world without end. Amen.
What about these statements made by so many people about old values and the disintegration of our society today? What about the incredible rise in teen births or welfare mothers or our world run amok?
Your world has run amok, and this I will agree. But your world is not run amok because of what you have allowed your schools to teach your children. It is run amok because of what you have not allowed them to teach. You have not allowed your schools to teach that love is all there is. You have not allowed your schools to speak of a love which is unconditional.
Hell, we won't even allow our religions to speak of that.
That's right. And you will not allow your offspring to be taught to celebrate themselves and their bodies, their humanness, and their wondrous sexual selves. And you will not allow your children to know that they are, first and foremost, spiritual beings inhabiting a body. Nor do you treat your children as spirits coming into bodies. In societies where sexuality is openly spoken of, freely discussed, joyously explained and experienced, there is virtually no sexual crime only a tiny number of births which occur when they are not expected, and no illegitimate or unwanted births. In highly evolved societies, all births are blessings, and all mothers and all children have their welfare looked after. Indeed, the society would have it no other way. In societies where history is not bent to the views of the strongest and most powerful, the mistakes of the past are openly acknowledged and never repeated, and once is enough for behaviors which are clearly self-destructive. In societies where critical thinking and problem-solving and skills for living are taught, rather than facts simply memorized, even so-called justifiable actions of the past are held up to intense scrutiny. Nothing is accepted on face value.
How would that work? Let's use our example from World War II. How would a school system teaching life skills rather than merely facts approach the historical episode at Hiroshima?
Your teachers would describe to their class exactly what happened there. They would include all the facts which led up to that event. They would seek the views of historians from both sides of the encounter, realizing that there is more than one point of view on everything. They would then not ask the class to memorize the facts of the matter. Instead, they would challenge the class. They would say, now you've heard all about this event. You know all that came before and all that happened after. We've given you as much of the knowledge of this event as we could get our hands on. Now, from this knowledge, what wisdom comes to you? If you were chosen to solve the problems which were being faced in those days and which were solved by the dropping of the bomb, how would you solve them? Can you think of a better way?
Oh, sure, that's easy. Anybody can come up with answers that way. With the benefit of hindsight, anybody can look over their shoulder and say, I would have done it differently.
Then why don't you?
I beg your pardon?
I said, then why don't you? Why have you not looked over your shoulder, learned from your past, and done it differently? I'll tell you why. Because to allow your children to look at your past and analyze it critically, indeed to require them to do so as a part of their education, would be to run the risk of them disagreeing with how you did things. They will disagree anyway, of course. You just won't allow too much of it in your classrooms, so they have to take to the streets, wave signs, tear up draft cards, burn bras and flags, do whatever they can do to get your attention, to get you to see. Your young people have been screaming at you, there must be a better way, yet you do not hear them. You do not want to hear them. And you certainly don't want to encourage them in the classroom to start critically thinking about the facts you are giving them. Just get it, you say to them. Don't come in here and tell us we've been doing it wrong. Just get that we've been doing it right. That's how you educate your children. That's what you've been calling education.
But there are those who would say it's the young people and their crazy, wacko liberal ideas who have taken this country and this world down the tubes, sent it to hell, pushed it to the edge of oblivion, destroyed our values-oriented culture and replaced it with a do whatever you want to do, whatever feels good morality, which threatens to end our very way of life.
The young people are destroying your way of life. The young people have always done that. Your job is to encourage it, not discourage it. It is not your young people who are destroying the rainforests. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who are depleting your ozone layer. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who are exploiting the poor in sweatshops all over the world. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who are taxing you to death, then using the money for war and machines of war. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who are ignoring the problems of the weak and the downtrodden, letting hundreds of people die of starvation every day on a planet with more than enough to feed everybody. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who are engaging in the politics of deception and manipulation. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who are sexually repressed, ashamed, and embarrassed about their own bodies and passing on this shame and embarrassment to their offspring. They are asking you to stop it. It is not your young people who have set up a value system which says that might is right and a world which solves problems with violence. They are asking you to stop it. Nay, they are not asking you. They are begging you.
Yet it is young people who are violent, young people who join gangs and kill each other, young people who thumb their nose at law and order and any kind of order, young people who are driving us crazy.
When the cries and pleas of young people to change the world are not heard and never heeded, when they see that their cause is lost, that you will have it your way no matter what, young people who are not stupid will do the next best thing. If they can't beat you, they will join you. Your young people have joined you in your behaviors. If they are violent, it is because you are violent. If they are materialistic, it is because you are materialistic. If they are acting crazy, it is because you are acting crazy. And if they are using sex manipulatively, irresponsibly, shamefully, it is because they see you doing the same. The only difference between young people and older people is that young people do what they do out in the open. Older people hide their behaviors. Older people think that young people cannot see. Yet young people see everything. Nothing is hidden from them. They see the hypocrisy of their elders, and they try desperately to change it. Yet having tried and failed, they see no choice but to imitate it. In this they are wrong, yet they have never been taught differently. They have not been allowed to critically analyze what their elders have been doing. They have only been allowed to memorize it. What you memorize, you memorialize.
Well, how, then, should we educate our young?
First, treat them as spirits. They are spirits entering a physical body. That is not an easy thing for a spirit to do. Not an easy thing for a spirit to get used to. It is very confining, very limiting. So the child will cry out at suddenly being so limited. Hear this cry. Understand it. And give your children as much of a sense of unlimitedness as you possibly can. Next, introduce them to the world you have created with gentleness and care. Be full of care. That is to say, be careful of what you put into their memory storage units. Children remember everything they see, everything they experience. Why do you spank your children the moment they exit the womb? Do you really imagine this is the only way to get their engines going? Why do you take your babies away from their mothers minutes after they have been separated from the only life form they have known in all of their present existence? Will not the measuring and the weighing and the prodding and the poking wait for just a moment while the newly born experience the safety and the comfort of that which has given it life? Why do you allow some of the earliest images to which your child is exposed to be images of violence? Who told you this was good for your children? And why do you hide images of love? Why do you teach your children to be ashamed and embarrassed of their own bodies and their functions by shielding your own body from them and telling them not to ever touch themselves in ways which pleasure them? What message do you send them about pleasure? And what lessons about the body? Why do you place your children in schools where competition is allowed and encouraged, where being the best and learning the most is rewarded, where performance is graded and moving at one's own pace is barely tolerated? What does your child understand from this? Why do you not teach your children of movement and music and the joy of art and the mystery of fairy tales and the wonder of life? Why do you not bring out what is naturally found in the child, rather than seek to put in what is unnatural to the child? And why do you not allow your young ones to learn logic and critical thinking and problem solving and creation, using the tools of their own intuition and their deepest inner knowing, rather than the rules and the memorized systems and conclusions of a society which has already proven itself to be wholly unable to evolve by these methods, yet continues to use them? Finally, teach concepts, not subjects. Devise a new curriculum and build it around 3 core concepts: awareness, honesty, responsibility. Teach your children these concepts from the earliest age. Have them run through the curriculum until the final day. Base your entire educational model upon them. Birth all instruction deep within them.
I don't understand what that would mean.
It means everything you teach would come from within these concepts.
Can you explain that? How would we teach the 3 R's?
From the earliest primers to your more sophisticated readers, all tales, stories, and subject matter would revolve around the core concepts. That is, they would be stories of awareness, stories dealing with honesty, stories about responsibility. Your children would be introduced to the concepts, injected into the concepts, immersed in the concepts. Writing tasks, likewise, would revolve around these core concepts and others which are attendant to them as the child grows in the ability to self-express. Even computation skills would be taught within this framework. Arithmetic and mathematics are not abstractions, but are the most basic tools in the universe for living life. The teaching of all computation skills would be contextualized within the larger life experience in a way which draws attention to and places focus upon the core concepts and their derivatives.
What are these derivatives?
Well, to use a phrase which your media people have made popular, they are the spin-offs.
The entire educational model can be based on these spin-offs, replacing the subjects in your present curriculum, which teach basically facts.
For instance?
Well, let's use our imagination. What are some of the concepts which are important to you in life?
Well, I would say honesty, as you have said.
Yes, go ahead. That's a core concept.
And fairness, that's an important concept to me.
Good. Any others?
Treating others nicely, that's one. I don't know how to put that into a concept.
Go on, just let the thoughts flow.
Getting along, being tolerant, not hurting others, seeing others as equal. Those are all things I would hope I could teach my children.
Excellent. Keep going.
Believing in yourself. That's a good one. And, wait, there's one coming. Yeah, that's it. Walking in dignity. I guess I would call it walking in dignity. I don't know how to put that into a better concept either, but it has to do with the way one carries oneself in one's life, the way one honors others, and the path others are taking.
This is good stuff. This is all good stuff. You're getting down to it now. And there are many other such concepts which all children must deeply understand if they are to evolve and grow into complete human beings. Yet you do not teach these things in your schools. These are the most important things in life. These things we now are talking of. But you do not teach them in school. You do not teach what it means to be honest. You do not teach what it means to be responsible. You do not teach what it means to be aware of other people's feelings and respectful of other people's paths. You say it is up to parents to teach these things. Yet parents can only pass on what has been passed on to them. And the sins of the father have been visited upon the son. So you are teaching in your homes the same stuff your parents taught you in their homes.
So, what's wrong with that?
As I keep saying repeatedly here, taken a look at the world lately?
You keep bringing us back to that. You keep making us look at that. But all of that isn't our fault. We can't be blamed for the way the rest of the world is.
It's not a question of blame. It's a question of choice. And if you are not responsible for the choices humankind has been making and keeps making, who is?
Well, we can't keep making ourselves responsible for all of it.
I tell you this. Until you are willing to take responsibility for all of it, you cannot change any of it. You cannot keep saying they did it, and they are doing it, and if only they would get it right. Remember the wonderful line from Walt Kelly's comic strip character Pogo, and never forget it. We have met the enemy, and they is us.
We've been repeating the same mistakes for hundreds of years, haven't we?
For thousands of years, my son. You've been making the same mistakes for thousands of years. Humankind has not evolved in its most basic instincts much beyond the caveman era. Yet every attempt to change that is met with scorn. Every challenge to look at your values, and maybe even restructure them, is greeted with fear and then anger. Now along comes an idea for me to actually teach higher concepts in schools. Oh boy, now we're really treading on thin ice. Still, in highly evolved societies, that is exactly what is done.
Yes, but the problem is not all people agree on these concepts, on what they mean. That's why you can't teach them in our schools. Parents go nuts when you try to introduce these things into the curriculum. They say you're teaching values, and that the school has no place in such instruction.
They're wrong. Again, based on what you say as a race of people that you're trying to do, which is build a better world. They are wrong. Schools are exactly the place for such instruction, precisely because schools are detached from parents' prejudices, precisely because schools are separated from parents' preconceived notions. You've seen what has resulted on your planet from the passing down of values from parent to child. Your planet is a mess. You don't understand the most basic concepts of civilized societies. You don't know how to solve conflict without violence. You don't know how to live without fear. You don't know how to act without self-interest. You don't know how to love without condition. These are basic understandings, and you have not even begun to approach a full comprehension of them, much less implement them, after thousands and thousands of years.
Is there any way out of this mess?
Yes, it is in your schools. It is in the education of your young. Your hope is in the next generation and the next. But you must stop immersing them in the ways of the past. Those ways have not worked. They have not taken you where you say you want to go. Yet if you are not careful, you are going to get exactly where you are headed. So stop. Turn around. Sit down together and collect your thoughts. Create the grandest version of the greatest vision you ever had about yourselves as a human race. Then take the values and concepts which undergird such a vision and teach them in your schools. Why not courses such as Understanding Power,
Peaceful conflict resolution,
Elements of Loving Relationships,
personhood and self-creation,
Body, Mind, and Spirit, How They Function,
engaging creativity,
Celebrating Self, Valuing Others,
joyous sexual expression,
Fairness,
tolerance,
Diversities and Similarities,
ethical economics,
Creative Consciousness and Mind Power,
awareness and wakefulness,
Honesty and Responsibility,
visibility and transparency.
Science and Spirituality.
Much of this is taught right now. We call it social studies.
I'm not talking about a 2-day unit in a semester-long course. I'm talking about separate courses on each of these things. I'm talking about a complete revision of your school's curricula. I am speaking of a values-based curriculum. You're now teaching what is largely a fact-based curriculum. I'm talking about focusing your child's attention as much on understanding the core concepts and the theoretical structures around which their value system may be reconstructed, as you now do on dates and facts and statistics.
In the highly evolved societies of your galaxy and your universe, concepts for living are taught to offspring beginning at a very early age. What you call facts, which in those societies are considered far less important, are taught at a much later age. On your planet, you have created a society in which little Johnny has learned how to read before getting out of preschool, but still hasn't learned how to stop biting his brother. And Susie has perfected her multiplication tables using flashcards and rote memory in ever earlier and earlier grades, but has not learned that there is nothing shameful or embarrassing about her body. Right now, your schools exist primarily to provide answers. It would be far more beneficial if their primary function was to ask questions. What does it mean to be honest or responsible or fair? What are the implications? For that matter, what does it mean that 2 plus 2 equals 4? What are the implications? Highly evolved societies encourage all children to discover and create those answers for themselves.
But that would lead to chaos.
As opposed to the non-chaotic conditions under which you now live your life?
Okay. So it would lead to more chaos.
I'm not suggesting that your schools never share with your offspring any of the things which you have learned or decided about these things. Quite to the contrary. Schools serve their students when they share with young ones what elders have learned and discovered, decided and chosen in the past. Students may then observe how all this has worked. In your schools, however, you present these data to the student as that which is right, when the data really should be offered as simply that, data. Past data should not be the basis of present truth. Data from a prior time or experience should always and only be the basis for new questions. Always the treasure should be in the question, not in the answer. And always the questions are the same. With regard to this past data, which we have shown you, do you agree or do you disagree? What do you think? Always this is the key question. Always this is the focus. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Now, obviously, children will bring to this question the values of their parents. Parents will continue to have a strong role, obviously the primary role, in creating the child's system of values. The school's intention and purpose would be to encourage offspring from the earliest age until the end of formal education to explore those values and to learn how to use them, apply them, functionalize them, and yes, even to question them. For parents who do not want children questioning their values are not parents who love their children, but rather who love themselves through their children.
I wish, oh, how I wish that there were schools such as the ones you describe.
There are some which seek to approach this model.
There are.
Yes. Read the writings of the man called Rudolf Steiner. Explore the methods of the Waldorf School, which he developed.
Well, of course, I know all about those schools. Is this a commercial?
This is an observation.
Because you knew I was familiar with the Waldorf schools. You knew that.
Of course I knew that. Everything in your life has served you, brought you to this moment. I have not just started talking with you. I've been talking with you for years, through all of your associations and experiences.
You're saying the Waldorf school is the best?
No. I am saying it is a model which works, given where you say as a human race you want to go, given what you claim you want to do, given what you say you want to be. I am saying it is an example, one of several I could cite, although on your planet and your society they are rare, of how education may be accomplished in a way which focuses on wisdom more than simply knowledge.
Well, it's a model I very much approve of. There are many differences between a Waldorf school and other schools. Let me give you an example. It's just one, simple one, but it dramatically illustrates the point. In the Waldorf school, the teacher moves with the children through all levels of the primary and elementary learning experience. For all those years, the children have the same teacher, rather than moving from one person to another. Can you imagine the bond which is formed here? Can you see the value? The teacher comes to know the child as if it were his or her own. The child moves to a level of trust and love with the teacher, which opens doors many traditionally oriented schools never dreamed existed. At the end of those years, the teacher reverts back to the first grade, starting over again with another group of children and moving through all the years of the curriculum once more. A dedicated Waldorf teacher may wind up working with only 4 or 5 groups of children in an entire career, but he or she has meant something to those children beyond anything that is possible in a traditional school setting. This educational model recognizes and announces that the human relationship, the bonding and the love which is shared in such a paradigm is just as important as any fact the teacher may impart to the child. It's like homeschooling outside the home.
Yes, it's a good model.
There are other good models?
Yes, and you are making some progress on your planet with regard to education, but it's very slow. Even the attempt to place a goals-oriented, skill development-focused curriculum in public schools has met with enormous resistance. People see it as threatening or ineffective. They want children to learn facts. Still, there are some inroads, yet there is much to be done. And that is only one area of the human experience which could use some overhauling, given what you say as human beings that you are seeking to be.
Yes, I should imagine the political arena could use some changes, too.
To be sure.
I've been waiting for this. This is more of what I assumed you were promising me when you told me that we would deal with planetary issues on a global scale. So can we begin to look at our human politics by my asking you what may seem like an elementary question?
No questions are undeserving or unworthy. Questions are like people.
Ah, good one. Okay, then, let me ask. Is it wrong to undertake a foreign policy based on your country's own vested interests?
No. First, from my standpoint, nothing is wrong. But I understand how you use the term, so I will speak within the context of your vocabulary. I'll use the term wrong to mean that which is not serving you, given who and what you choose to be. This is how I've always used the terms right and wrong with you. It is always within this context, for in truth, there is no right or wrong. So, within that context, no, it is not wrong to base foreign policy decisions on vested interest considerations. What is wrong is to pretend that you're not doing so. This most countries do, of course. They take action or fail to take action for one set of reasons, then give as a rationale another set of reasons.
Why? Why do countries do that?
Because governments know that if people understood the real reasons for most foreign policy decisions, the people would not support them. This is true of governments everywhere.
There are very few governments which do not deliberately mislead their people. Deception is part of government. For few people would choose to be governed the way they are governed. Few would choose to be governed at all, unless government convinced them that its decisions were for their own good. This is a hard convincing, for most people plainly see the foolishness in government. So government must lie to at least try to hold the people's loyalty. Government is the perfect portrayer of the accuracy of the axiom that if you lie big enough, long enough, the lie becomes the truth. People in power must never let the public know how they came to power, nor all that they've done and are willing to do to stay there.
It's time for the world to stop kidding itself, to wake up, to realize that the only problem of humanity is lack of love. Love breeds tolerance. Tolerance breeds peace. Intolerance produces war and looks indifferently upon intolerable conditions. Love cannot be indifferent. It does not know how. The fastest way to get to a place of love and concern for all humankind is to see all humankind as your family. The fastest way to see all humankind as your family is to stop separating yourself. Each of the nation-states now making up your world must unite.
We do have the United Nations,
which has been powerless and impotent. In order for that body to work, it would have to be completely restructured. Not impossible, but perhaps difficult and cumbersome.
Okay, what do you propose?
I don't have a proposal. I merely offer observations. In this dialogue, you tell me what your new choices are, and I offer observations and ways to manifest that. What is it you now choose with regard to the current relationship between people and nations on your planet?
All right, I'll use your words. If I had my way, I would choose for us to get to a place of love and concern for all humankind.
Given that choice, I observe that what would work would be the formation of a new world political community, with each nation-state having an equal say in the world's affairs and an equal proportionate share of the world's resources.
It'll never work. The haves will never surrender their sovereignty, wealth, resources to the have-nots. And argumentatively, why should they?
Because it is in their best interest.
Well, they don't see that, and I'm not sure that I do.
If you could add billions of dollars a year to your nation's economy, dollars which could be spent to feed the hungry, clothe the needy, house the poor, bring security to the elderly, provide better health, and produce a dignified standard of living for all, wouldn't that be in your nation's best interests?
Well, in America, there are those who would argue that it would help the poor at the expense of the rich and the middle-income taxpayer. Meanwhile, the country goes to hell, crime ravages the nation, inflation robs the people of their life savings, unemployment skyrockets, the government grows bigger and fatter, and in school they're handing out condoms.
You sound like a radio talk show.
Well, these are the concerns of many Americans.
Then they are short-sighted. Do you not see that if billions of dollars a year, that's millions a month, hundreds and hundreds of thousands a week, unheard of amounts each day, could be sunk back into your system, that if you could use these monies to feed your hungry, clothe your needy, house your poor, bring security to your elderly, and provide health care and dignity to all, the causes of crime would be lost forever? Do you not see that new jobs would mushroom as dollars were pumped back into your economy? That your own government could even be reduced because it would have less to do?
I suppose some of that could happen. I can't imagine government ever getting smaller, but just where are these millions and billions going to come from? Taxes imposed by your New World government? More taking from those who work to get it, to give to those who won't stand on their own 2 feet and go after it?
Is that how you frame it?
No, but it is how a great many people see it. I just wanted to fairly state their view.
Well, I'd like to talk about that later. Right now, I don't want to get off track, but I want to come back to that later.
Great.
But you've asked where these new dollars would come from. Well, they would not have to come from any new taxes imposed by the New World community, although members of the community, individual citizens, would want, under an enlightened governance, to send 10% of their income to provide for society's needs as a whole. Nor would they come from new taxes imposed by any local government. In fact, some local governments would surely be able to reduce taxes. All of these benefits would result from the simple restructuring of your worldview, the simple reordering of your world political configuration.
How?
The money you save from building defense systems and attack weapons.
Oh, I get it. You want us to close down the military.
Not just you. Everybody in the world. But not close down your military. Simply reduce it drastically. Internal order would be your only need. You could strengthen local police, something you say you want to do but cry each year at budget time that you cannot do, at the same time dramatically reducing your spending on weapons of war and preparations for war, that is, offensive and defensive weapons of mass destruction.
Well, first, I think your figures exaggerate how much could be saved by doing that. Second, I don't think you'll ever convince people they should give up their ability to defend themselves.
Let's look at the numbers. As of March 1994, the world's governments spend about $1 trillion a year for military purposes. That's $1 million a minute worldwide. The nations that are spending the most could redirect the most to the other priorities mentioned. So larger, richer nations would see it in their best interest to do so, if they thought it was possible. But larger, richer nations cannot imagine going defenseless, for they fear aggression and attack from the nations which envy them and want what they have. There are 2 ways to eliminate this threat. Share enough of the world's total wealth and resources with all of the world's people so that no one will want and need what someone else has, and everyone may live in dignity and remove themselves from fear. Create a system for the resolution of differences that eliminates the need for war, and even the possibility of it.
The people of the world would probably never do this.
They already have.
They have?
Yes. There is a great experiment now going on in your world in just this sort of political order. That experiment is called the United States of America.
Which you said was failing miserably.
It is. It has very far to go before it could be called a success. Still, it is the best experiment going. As Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst system, except all others.
Your nation was the first to take a loose confederation of individual states and successfully unite them into a cohesive group, each submitting to one central authority. At the time, none of the states wanted to do this, and each resisted mightily, fearing the loss of its individual greatness and claiming that such a union would not serve its best interests. It may be instructive to understand just what was going on with these individual states at that time. While they had joined together in a loose confederation, there was no real U.S. government. and hence no power to enforce the Articles of Confederation to which the states had agreed. The states were conducting their own foreign affairs, several reaching private agreements on trade and other matters with France, Spain, England, and other countries. States traded with each other as well, and although their Articles of Confederation forbade it, some states added tariffs to the goods shipped in from other states, just as they did for goods from across the ocean. Merchants had no choice but to pay at the harbor if they wanted to buy or sell their goods, there being no central authority, although there was a written agreement to prohibit such taxing. The individual states also fought wars with each other. Each state considered its militia a standing army. 9 states had their own navies. And "Don't tread on me" could have been the official motto of every state in the Confederation. Over half of the states were even printing their own money, although the Confederation had agreed that doing so would also be illegal. In short, your original states, though joined together under the Articles of Confederation, were acting exactly as independent nations do today. Although they could see that the agreements of their confederation, such as the granting to Congress the sole authority to coin money, were not working, they staunchly resisted creating and submitting to a central authority that could enforce these agreements and put some teeth into them. Yet in time, a few progressive leaders began to prevail. They convinced the rank and file that there was more to be gained by creating such a new federation than they would ever lose. Merchants would save money and increase profits because individual states could no longer tax each other's goods. Governments would save money and have more to put into programs and services that truly helped people because resources would not have to be used to protect individual states from each other. The people would have greater security and safety and greater prosperity, too, by cooperating with, rather than fighting with, each other. Far from losing their greatness, each state could become greater still. And that, of course, is exactly what has happened. The same could be made to happen with the 160 nation-states in the world today if they were to join together in a united federation. It could mean an end to war.
How so? There would still be disagreements.
So long as humans remain attached to outer things, that is true. There's a way to truly eliminate war and all experience of unrest and lack of peace. But that is a spiritual solution. We are here exploring a geopolitical one. Actually, the trick is to combine the two. Spiritual truth must be lived in practical life to change everyday experience. Until this change occurs, there would still be disagreements. You are right. Yet there need not be wars. There need not be killing. Are there wars between California and Oregon over water rights? Between Maryland and Virginia over fishing? Between Wisconsin and Illinois? Ohio and Massachusetts?
No.
And why not? Have not various disputes and differences arisen between them?
Through the years, I suppose so.
You can bet on it. But these individual states have voluntarily agreed. It was a simple, voluntary agreement to abide by certain laws and abide by certain compromises on matters common to them, while retaining the right to pass separate statutes on matters relating to each individually. And when disputes between states do arise due to differing interpretations of the federal law, or someone simply breaking that law, the matter is taken to a court, which has been granted the authority, that is, given the authority by the states, to resolve the dispute. And if the current body of law does not provide a precedent or a means by which the matter can be brought through the courts to a satisfactory resolution, the states and the people in them send their representatives to a central government to try to create agreement on new laws that will produce a satisfactory circumstance, or at the very least, a reasonable compromise. This is how your federation works. A system of laws, a system of courts, empowered by you to interpret those laws, and a justice system, backed by armed might if needed, to enforce the decisions of those courts. Although no one could argue that the system doesn't need improving, this political concoction has worked for more than 200 years. There is no reason to doubt that the same recipe will work between nation-states as well.
If this is so simple, why hasn't it been tried?
It has. Your League of Nations was an early attempt. The United Nations is the latest. Yet one failed and the other has been only minimally effective because, like the 13 states of America's original confederation, the member nation-states, particularly the most powerful, are afraid they have more to lose than to gain from the reconfiguration. That is because the people of power are more concerned with holding on to their power than with improving the quality of life for all people. The haves know that such a world federation would inevitably produce more for the have-nots, but the haves believe this would come at their expense, and they're giving up nothing.
Isn't their fear justified? And is wanting to hold on to what you have so long struggled for unreasonable?
First, it is not necessarily true that to give more to those who now hunger and thirst and live without shelter, others must give up their abundance. As I pointed out, all you would have to do is take the $1 trillion spent annually worldwide for military purposes and shift that to humanitarian purposes, and you will have solved the problem without spending an additional penny or shifting any of the wealth from where it now resides to where it does not. Of course, it could be argued that those international conglomerates whose profits come from war and tools for war would be losers, as would their employees and all those whose abundance is derived from the world's conflict consciousness. But perhaps your source of abundance is misplaced. If one has to depend on the world living in strife in order for one to survive, perhaps this dependence explains why your world resists any attempt to create a structure for lasting peace. As for the second part of your question, wanting to hold on to what you have struggled so long to acquire, as an individual or as a nation, is not unreasonable if you come from an outside world consciousness.
A what?
If you derive your life's greatest happiness from experiences obtainable only in the outside world, the physical world outside of yourself, you will never want to give up an ounce of all that you've piled up as a person and a nation to make you happy. As long as those who have not see their unhappiness tied to the lack of material things, they too will get caught in the trap. They will constantly want what you have got, and you will constantly refuse to share it. That's why I said earlier that there is a way to truly eliminate war and all experience of unrest and lack of peace, but this is a spiritual solution. Ultimately, every geopolitical problem, just as every personal problem, breaks down to a spiritual problem. All of life is spiritual, and therefore all of life's problems are spiritually based and spiritually solved. Wars are created on your planet because somebody has something that somebody else wants. This is what causes someone to do something that somebody else does not want them to do. All conflict arises from misplaced desire. The only peace in all the world that is sustaining is internal peace. Let each person find peace within. When you find peace within, you also find that you can do without. This means simply that you no longer need the things of your outside world. Not needing is a great freedom. It frees you first from fear. Fear that there is something you won't have, fear that there is something you have that you will lose, and fear that without a certain thing, you won't be happy. Secondly, not needing frees you from anger. Anger is fear announced. When you have nothing to fear, you have nothing over which to be angry. You're not angry when you don't get what you want because your wanting it was simply a preference, not a necessity. You therefore have no fear associated with the possibility of not getting it, hence no anger. You are not angry when you see others doing what you don't want them to do because you don't need them to do or not do any particular thing, hence no anger. You're not angry when someone is unkind because you have no need for them to be kind. You have no anger when someone is unloving because you have no need for them to love you. You have no anger when someone is cruel or hurtful or seeks to damage you, for you have no need for them to behave any other way, and you are clear that you cannot be damaged. You do not even have anger should someone seek to take your life, because you do not fear death. When fear is taken from you, all else can be taken from you, and you will not be angry. You know inwardly, intuitively, that everything you've created can be created again, or more importantly, that it doesn't matter. When you find inner peace, neither the presence nor the absence of any person, place, or thing, condition, circumstances, or situation can be the creator of your state of mind or the cause of your experience of being. This doesn't mean that you reject all things of the body. Far from it. You experience being fully in your body and the delights of that as you never have before. Yet your involvement with things of the body will be voluntary, not mandatory. You will experience bodily sensations because you choose to, not because you're required to in order to feel happy or to justify sadness. This one simple change, seeking and finding peace within, could, were it undertaken by everyone, end all wars, eliminate conflict, prevent injustice, and bring the world to everlasting peace. There is no other formula necessary or possible. World peace is a personal thing. What is needed is not a change of circumstance, but a change of consciousness.
How can we find inner peace when we're hungry, be at a place of serenity when we thirst, remain calm when we're wet and cold and without shelter, or avoid anger when our loved ones are dying without cause? You know, you speak so poetically, but is poetry practical? Does it have anything to say to the mother in Ethiopia who watches her emaciated child die for lack of one slice of bread? The man in Central America who feels a bullet rip his body because he tried to stop an army from taking over his village? And what does your poetry say to the woman in Brooklyn, raped 8 times by a gang? Or the family of 6 in Ireland, blown away by a terrorist bomb planted in a church on a Sunday morning?
This is difficult to hear, but I tell you this. There is perfection in everything. Strive to see the perfection. This is the change of consciousness of which I speak. Need nothing. Desire everything. Choose what shows up. Feel your feelings. Cry your cries. Laugh your laughs. Honor your truth. Yet when all the emotion is done, be still and know that I am God. In other words, in the midst of the greatest tragedy, see the glory of the process. Even as you die with a bullet through your chest, even as you are being gang raped. Now, this sounds like such an impossible thing to do, yet when you move to God consciousness, you can do it. You don't have to do it, of course. It depends on how you wish to experience the moment. In a moment of great tragedy, the challenge always is to quiet the mind and move deeply within the soul. You automatically do this when you have no control over it. Have you ever talked with a person who accidentally ran a car off a bridge or found himself facing a gun or nearly drowned? Often they will tell you that time slowed way down, that they were overcome by a curious calm, that there was no fear at all. Fear not, for I am with you. That is what poetry has to say to the person facing tragedy. In your darkest hour, I will be your light. In your blackest moment, I will be your consolation. In your most difficult and trying time, I will be your strength. Therefore have faith, for I am your shepherd. You shall not want. I will cause you to lie down in green pastures. I will lead you beside still waters. I will restore your soul and lead you in the paths of righteousness for my name's sake.
And yea, though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you will fear no evil, for I am with you. My rod and my staff will comfort you. I am preparing a table before you in the presence of your enemies. I shall anoint your head with oil. Your cup will run over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow you all the days of your life, and you will dwell in my house and in my heart forever.
That's wonderful. What you said there is just wonderful. I wish the world could get that. I wish the world could understand, could believe.
This program will help that. You are helping that. So you are playing a role, you are doing your part in raising the collective consciousness. That is what all must do.
Yes.